The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601 Confidentiality. Don't worry, sir. I will never appear in front of you again, the fisherman said respectfully. He originally planned to leave Kirigakure, and he was not afraid of being exposed, so Orochimaru chose to let him come out to meet. Qishuang said nothing more, turned around and opened his right hand towards the cylindrical glass cylinder in the cabin. Ice release. Ice sealing technique. Chakra transformed into ice attribute. Cold air seeped out from the fingertips and entangled with the glass cylinder. In just a moment of contact, the entire glass cylinder was frozen in thick ice crystals. That was Qishuang's cover for bringing back White Zetsu. There were ice crystals on the outer layer to block the view. Unless others looked closely, it would be impossible to find out what was frozen inside. Remember what I said just now. After warning again, Qishuang carried the glass cylinder on his shoulder and stepped onto the river. Then he walked on the waves and disappeared on the river surface in a few leaps. Looking at his receding back, the fisherman silently picked up the oars and rowed the boat down the river. When he could no longer see the Hidden Mist Village and there were no one around, he dropped the boat and jumped onto the riverbank. Looking back at the Hidden Mist Village, he tore off the disguise on his face, revealing a young face, and said with a playful smile, "This one is really scary." Then, he took out a pair of glasses from his pocket and put them on, slowly disappearing into the jungle. On the other side, Qishuang was walking back carrying a large icicle. Along the way, many people pointed and talked, all casting curious eyes, but seeing that he looked like he didn't want to be approached, no one dared to come up and ask. White Zetsu's wood release was the killer weapon he prepared for the Ministry of Agriculture. If he could hide it for a while longer, he would of course hide it for a while longer. However, it was only a matter of time before White Zetsu was exposed. In addition, there were so many White Zetsu that the other 4 villages could capture White Zetsu if they wanted to. Thinking of this, he frowned secretly and said, "It seems that I still have to take some precautions in the technology of hybrid breeding. In this world, where agricultural productivity is extremely backward, if they, Kirigakure, take the first step in the agricultural revolution, they will surely be able to recover quickly and surpass the other 4 villages, laying a solid foundation for becoming the first ninja village. Therefore, he must let Kirigakure maintain this advantage. The matter of White Zetsu cannot be hidden for too long, and he cannot prevent the other 4 villages from obtaining the power of wood release of White Zetsu. But White Zetsu's wood release is only a catalyst for hybrid breeding. Without wood release, the purpose of hybrid breeding can also be achieved, but it will take a lot of time. In other words, as long as Kirigakure keeps the basic theory of hybrid breeding, the other 4 villages will not be able to catch up with them in a short time, even if they have wood release. Wait a minute, let the Anbu send someone to the Ministry of Agriculture. Qishuang secretly made up his mind and decided to keep the information of the Ministry of Agriculture confidential. At present, the other 4 villages may know the news that he has established the Ministry of Agriculture. But with the thinking of ninjas, they probably look down on agriculture, so even if they know that the Ministry of Agriculture has been established, they will not care. In addition, the Ministry of Agriculture has just started and has not achieved any results, so they will not take it seriously. Moreover, what he revealed is not all. Even if they know it, it is impossible for them to realize agricultural reform faster than him. As long as the Enbu people come to encrypt the protection and do a good job of post-processing, it should be enough to deal with the prying of the other 4 villages. Then, after placing the White Zetsu experiment, Qishuang came to the Enbu. "How come you have time to come here today, sir?" The Enbu minister received him. He was a man with a long scar on his face. "I have a task to give you," Qishuang said to him seriously. "Sir, please speak." The Enbu minister had a solemn face. The task that can make the Enbu dispatch must be very important and cannot be sloppy. Qishuang slowly said, "I believe you all know about my establishment of the Ministry of Agriculture." The scar-faced minister nodded. "This sir established a meaningless department and asked those old farmers to give lectures in school, which made all the Kirigakure ninjas very puzzled. Because of my previous negligence, I forgot to set up information confidentiality. Qishuang paused and continued, in order to prevent the secrets of the Ministry of Agriculture from being leaked, I want you to send someone to clean up the mess. Set up seals on those old farmers in the Ministry of Agriculture to prohibit them from revealing the information of the Ministry of Agriculture to outsiders. Konoha village has the seal of the tongue trouble root, which is used to restrain those who are in the middle of the technique, prohibit them from revealing specific information, and prevent the enemy's brain from probing. Peen also has a sealing technique, to prohibit the enemy from probing his own information from his subordinates. As the village with the strictest information confidentiality, Kirigakure is naturally not short of such things. The Scarface chief crossed his arms and asked seriously, that's no problem, but will the setting of the seal also work for our Kirigakure ninjas? Of course. Qishuang showed a matter-of-fact look, and added, the information of the Ministry of Agriculture is temporarily listed as one of the highest secrets of Kirigakure. Except for the internal staff of the Ministry of Agriculture, the seal must be effective for everyone. When he completes Kirigakure's agricultural reform and lets everyone see the earth-shaking changes in agriculture, they will realize how important the Ministry of Agriculture is, and it is not an exaggeration, to use the highest level of confidentiality. But sir, is it too much to protect the Ministry of Agriculture's information with such a strict level? The head of the Anbu asked cautiously. Qishuang waved his hand and said, don't worry about this, just do it. In addition, let your people secretly erase the memories of the Ministry of Agriculture of their family and friends except for the members of the Ministry of Agriculture. Because of the previous negligence, those members of the Ministry of Agriculture may have leaked the information of the Ministry of Agriculture after returning home. For the sake of safety, it is better to let the Anbu clean up the mess. Yes. Unable to persuade him, the head of the Anbu had to agree. Then, Qishuang took out a document from his pocket and handed it over, saying, this is the list of all the personnel in the Ministry of Agriculture. I hope you can help me get things done as quickly as possible. Controlling the spread of information, of course, the sooner the better. Don't worry, sir, I will help you get things done tonight. The head of the Anbu replied confidently. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Qishuang said goodbye and left the Anbu. As night fell, the Anbu ninjas quietly set out and found their respective mission targets according to the list. Many old farmers in the Ministry of Agriculture were just ordinary people and were easily captured by the Anbu, but the administrators of the Ministry of Agriculture were all ninjas, which was a little more troublesome. But after the Anbu ninjas explained their intentions, the administrators of the Ministry of Agriculture gave up resistance. The Anbu people first used illusions to test whether the information was leaked, and then they took their positions and started their own work. Some were responsible for setting seals, some were responsible for clearing the memories of irrelevant people, and so on. When the sun rose from the horizon, the Anbu people quietly retreated, and the tasks assigned by the superiors had been completed. The Kirigakure was still the same as usual, but everyone in the Ministry of Agriculture felt as if there was something extra in their heads. What was even more terrible was that they found that they could no longer talk about things related to the Ministry of Agriculture with people other than their companions in the Ministry of Agriculture. Chapter 602 Quick Success. Time passed quietly. The engineering department completed the design of the dam and started the construction work. The ninja school also reopened, adding medical and agricultural subjects, and invited doctors from the medical department and old farmers from the agricultural department to give lectures. The medical subject was okay, and many children were very interested and listened with relish. The agricultural subject was terrible, and the old farmers felt inferior to others, so of course they had no confidence when giving lectures. And an unconfident lecturer was like a funny clown on the stage, and the children would not take it to heart, and would not listen to a word of what the old farmers said. Fortunately, the old farmers were over 50 years old, half of their bodies were buried in the loess, and they had seen all kinds of storms. The children didn't want to listen, and they didn't care. They just completed the tasks assigned by the Ministry of Agriculture, and got their wages. In the R&D department, after nearly 10 debugging and corrections, the special device that Qishuang asked to make was finally handed over to him. and then all his energy was devoted to seawater purification and electricity conversion. Their device was well made. After placing the white Zetsu inside, it was impossible to see what was inside from the outside, unless the cover was opened. Then, Qishuang brought the device to the Ministry of Agriculture. "Come here." After a shout, a person in charge of management came to him. "What do you want, sir?" The person asked with his head down, and curiously glanced at the strange device beside him. "Gather everyone in the Ministry of Agriculture. I have something to say. In addition, bring me back a few rice seedlings." Qishuang earnestly instructed the person. "Yes." The administrator quickly withdrew. Soon, the entire hall of the Ministry of Agriculture was filled with dense crowds. The old farmers and administrators still stood in two distinct groups. "Sir, what are you looking for us for so urgently?" "We are looking at the seedlings in the paddy field," an old farmer in the crowd asked loudly, with brown mud on his feet. "I'll show you something better." Qishuang smiled mysteriously. "Is it the strange thing next to you?" The old farmer glanced at it in a suggestive manner. He had been in the Ministry of Agriculture for a month, and had never seen that strange mechanical device here. "It must have appeared here today." "Yes." Qishuang nodded and winked at the manager who had received the order earlier. The man was stunned for a moment, and then seemed to remember something, and immediately turned around, and walked up with a large basin. The basin was muddy and there were a few rice seedlings in it, which he had just brought back from the experimental field. Qishuang motioned him to put the large basin in front of him, and then said to everyone, "In order to speed up the experimental progress of hybrid breeding, I deliberately asked the R&D department to make this device." After saying that, he took a pistol-shaped accessory from the device. There was also a long wire connected to the butt of the gun, which was connected to the main body of the device. It was a special wire added by the R&D department according to his request, to extend the chakra output distance. The core of the wire was made of a special metal that could transmit chakra. With it, we can ripen rice seedlings in a very short time and obtain the next generation of rice seeds. Qishuang put the muzzle of the gun close to a seedling, smiled and pressed the switch on the gun-shaped accessory. Instantly, the whole device started to operate, extracting chakra from the white Zetsu in the device, and transmitting it to the gun-shaped attachment through the wire. A faint white light appeared on the muzzle of his gun, and shone on the rice seedlings. Then, everyone saw an extremely incredible scene. The rice seedlings illuminated by the white light grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, sprouting and pulling out branches. In less than a minute, the seedlings that were only about 1 foot tall grew to half the height of a person, and even the leaves and ears of rice turned golden yellow. There was a faint, familiar rice fragrance in the air. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned, and could not control themselves. How is it possible? An old farmer rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was seeing things. Is it an illusion? A manager looked at his companion suspiciously. This is impossible. The adults can't use illusions to perfunctory us. There is no practical meaning. Maybe it's the special effect of chakra. The companion shook his head with a serious face. The fake can never replace the real thing, and the rice produced by illusion can never really fill people's stomachs. That's true. The manager nodded. The power of chakra has infinite possibilities, and it's possible that this adult has developed a new use for chakra. The managers who were born as ninjas were very superstitious about the power of chakra, so they could still remain calm, but the old farmers couldn't stand it anyway. They had never seen such a scene before, and they hurriedly surrounded it. They were no longer old and frail in the past, like strong young men, arguing with each other, and they were eager to take a close look and touch the miraculous rice. "Don't worry, don't push. I'll pick the rice now. You can hold it in your hands and pass it around slowly." Qishuang signaled the old farmers to retreat. If he really squeezed these old arms and legs, he would be guilty. Hearing this, everyone suppressed their excitement and slowly stepped back a few steps. Qishuang then pulled the mature rice out of the basin and handed it to the nearest old farmer. The old farmer panted, his eyes reddened, and he stroked the rice in his hand with a slight tremor. The familiar touch and smell were indeed similar to what he had planted in the fields in the past. Then, he picked a grain of rice from under the rice ear with his trembling hands, put it into his mouth under the nervous gaze of everyone, and chewed it carefully. "How is it? What does it taste like?" An old man next to him asked impatiently. It's different from what I planted at home. It's a bit like the rice in the West. The old farmer spit the rice crumbs into his palm and said to others seriously, even in the same country, the water quality and soil quality in different regions are different, so the rice in different regions has certain differences. Of course, only old farmers like them who have been planting for many years can tell the difference. Ninjas who never care about farming can't tell the difference between different rice grains at all. Let me take a look. The old man next to him heard it and took the rice plant from his hand and observed it carefully. Finally, like the previous old farmer, he picked a grain of rice and put it in his mouth to taste. Well, it really looks like the rice in the West. He nodded and passed the rice plant in his hand to the next person. After everyone had passed it through, the rice was passed back to Qishuang again. There were only a few grains left on the rice ears. The many old farmers who passed it around had tasted almost everything. Yamato had a hard time doing real estate, and it was also difficult to do large-scale greening. It was best to do this kind of scientific research and breeding. Chakra consumption was not large. Chapter 603 Catalysis. Sir, there is this. An old farmer pointed at the device next to Qishuang excitedly, but didn't know what to call it. Qishuang said sympathetically, you can call it a catalyst, which is specially used for the catalytic growth of crops. The old farmer nodded, grinning from ear to ear. With this catalyst, the waiting time for hybrid breeding can be shortened hundreds of times. Perhaps in just a few days, we can cultivate new rice seeds. Another old man next to him also echoed, yes, we will be able to get new rice seeds soon. Seeing that everyone was full of confidence, Qishuang shook his head and laughed. Everyone is still too impatient. Because the catalyst allows everyone to directly see the results of hybridization in a short period of time, but it lacks the growth link in the middle. In other words, we cannot predict what problems these new rice seeds will encounter in the actual planting process. Perhaps, their plants are fragile and cannot withstand wind and rain, or perhaps they are very afraid of drought and need water extremely, and so on. This is something that cannot be observed in a short period of catalytic growth. So, I hope that, after you get the experimental results, you will plant them in the fields, slow down the catalytic process, and observe carefully for a period of time, to make up for the emissions. Hearing this, everyone nodded and said, Your Excellency is right. The ripening time is too short. It is indeed impossible to observe the growth process of the new seeds. We need to slow down the catalysis, and observe carefully, before we can start real agricultural planting. At this time, an old farmer made a different voice. Since Your Excellency has such a catalyst, why should we work hard to carry out hybrid breeding? Just mass produce it, and sell it to the people below. In this way, everyone can harvest a year's worth of food in a very short time. Isn't this also the purpose of increasing food production? The old farmer asked in surprise. After hybrid breeding, it still takes a long time to plant and wait before harvesting, but if there is this catalyst, everything will be different. No matter how much the people of Kirigakure want, they can directly catalyze and grow it, and they no longer need to waste time and energy to take care of crops. Hearing this, the other old farmers also reacted and said in unison, Yes, Master Qishuang, if we sell this catalyst to the people of Kirigakure to use as an ordinary farm tool, wouldn't it be more convenient? Qishuang waved his hands, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, signaling everyone to be quiet, and slowly explained, This catalyst is not like an ordinary farm tool. It uses a special kind of chakra to catalyze crops to produce its effect. And the chakra amount of this catalyst is very limited. It cannot be used for large-scale planting catalysis, but can only be used for small-scale experiments. The most important thing is that the chakra source contained in the catalyst is not easy to obtain, and it cannot be artificially manufactured, so it cannot be mass-produced and used as an ordinary farm tool. White Zetsu was born in a special way and has a certain connection with the Ten-Tails, but it does not mean that it has the same terrifying chakra as the tailed beasts. The amount of chakra it has is actually limited. If it is used as a farm tool, even if its chakra is drained, it is not enough to stimulate a family to grow a season's worth of food. Now the total population of Kirigakure is nearly 300,000, of which at least 200,000 are farmers. How many white zetsu are needed to meet the needs of the farmers in Kirigakure? I'm afraid they would have to directly destroy the base of the Akatsuki organization and completely control the base where the outer path demon statue raises the white zetsu. Therefore, the plan of mass producing the catalyst was rejected by him from the beginning. After listening to his explanation, everyone realized that the catalyst was not as simple as they imagined. Seeing the regretful look on everyone's faces, Qishuang continued, as long as everyone can breed better seeds through hybridization, we can grow more food even without the catalyst. Don't think about the catalyst anymore. What's more, if the people rely too much on the catalyst, they will inevitably become unfamiliar with the planting ability, or even forget it. If one day all the catalysts in Kirigakure are unusable, or are destroyed by someone, what will happen? Hearing this, the old farmers couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. As a farmer, if you lose your ability to plant, or even forget it, it means you lose the ability to live. The food produced by the catalyst will eventually run out. By then, those who forget to plant will probably starve to death. Knowing this, the old farmers completely gave up their fantasies about the catalyst and decided to cultivate new and excellent seeds. Qishuang waved the rice plants in her hand and continued to the group of people. I called everyone together today to continue the details of hybrid breeding that I didn't finish last time. Also, there is one thing I forgot to remind you. The hybrid breeding technology and theory of the Ministry of Agriculture are top secrets of Kirigakure. You are not allowed to mention them to any irrelevant personnel outside the Ministry of Agriculture. I have asked the Anbu to clear the memories of all irrelevant personnel and set up special seals for you. I think you have noticed the changes in yourself and the surroundings in the past few days. Hearing this, many old farmers showed a look of realization. No wonder I always feel something is wrong with my brain recently. Every time I want to talk to my family about the work of the Ministry of Agriculture, I just can't say it. I just feel a headache. An old farmer scratched his head and said, "Me too." Another old farmer nodded and said seriously, "Not only can I not talk about the Ministry of Agriculture with my family and friends, but they have forgotten everything I told them before. Now they turn around and ask me what I do in the Ministry of Agriculture. It's really strange." Raising his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, Qishuang continued, "From now on, everyone should be more careful when talking outside. If I find someone leaking secrets, I will kill them without mercy." Seeing the murderous intent flashing across his face, the old farmers couldn't help but shrink their necks. After coming to the Ministry of Agriculture for so long, it was the first time they saw this adult look so fierce. He was completely different from the previous amiable and approachable. It was not until then that they remembered that this person was not only the minister of the Ministry of Agriculture, but also the most famous and powerful person in Wuhan, and his reputation was earned bit by bit. Okay, let's get down to business. Qishuang threw the rice plant in his hand aside, picked up the gun-shaped attachment of the catalyst, and aimed it at another rice seedling in the pot. But this time, he adjusted the switch on the attachment and reduced the chakra output of the catalyst. Under the irradiation of the faint white light, the rice seedlings once again grew rapidly like a miracle, but the speed was much slower than before. When the seedlings pulled out light green rice ears, Qishuang immediately released the switch button of the attachment and stopped catalyzing the seedlings. The growth of the rice seedlings stopped completely, but it had already spanned several months of growth time, which was far from the 1-foot-tall seedlings just now. Chapter 604 Ice Flowers. Qishuang casually called over an administrator nearby and whispered, "Go find a tool that can magnify the field of view and project it like a movie." He didn't know if there was such a thing as a projector in this world, so he could only describe its function and ask them to find a similar tool. Yes. The administrator withdrew in response. About 10 minutes later, he came back with a machine. "Can you enlarge this for them to see?" Qishuang pointed to the grains on the light green rice ears and asked. The administrator put down the machine and nodded. "It should be no problem." "Okay, the projection work is left to you," Qishuang instructed, and then picked a grain of rice from the light green rice ears. "This, I believe you should all know, this is the rice harvested after the rice is ripe," he said to the old farmers with both hands holding the grains. Many old farmers nodded and did not object. The grains were too small, and the crowd was so crowded that their eyesight was not very good. They could not see what the adults were holding in their hands, but they could still see the adults picking from the rice ears. Therefore, they could barely confirm that it should be unripe rice. Qishuang continued, I told you before that rice can also bloom. This unripe rice is actually the flower of rice. Hearing this, the old farmers suddenly became excited. What? That's the flower of rice. How is it possible? No wonder they were so surprised. The rice flower is small, but it has no gorgeous petals and no attractive fragrance. It is completely different from the flowers we usually see. It is completely beyond their cognition. But this can't be blamed entirely on them. The basic technology level of this world is very weak. They can't even figure out the basic structure of flowers, so how can they recognize this uncommon rice flower? Qishuang said seriously, don't doubt it, this is indeed a rice flower. After successful pollination, it will slowly grow into the rice we harvest in the end. Seeing his serious face, everyone reluctantly accepted this statement. After all, they didn't know whether it was a rice flower, and this adult obviously knew more than them. Then naturally, the adult's words were the standard. Then, an old farmer asked, but sir, how can such a rice flower be pollinated and finally grow into rice? They have completely accepted the theory that flowers pollinate and then mature and bear fruit, and naturally understand the importance of pollination. A flower that is not pollinated will never bear fruit. Just like a female dog at home, if it is always locked up at home and does not mate with other male dogs, it will never be possible to get pregnant and give birth. Qishuang smiled and replied, so, I will explain to you the specific structural characteristics of rice flowers and its pollination process, laying the foundation for the cultivation of new rice varieties. After that, he put his fingers together to form a sword, infused chakra into his 2 fingers, and after the transformation of the nature of wind, a slightly green light blade appeared on his fingertips. It was a wind attribute chakra blade. Then, he placed the light green rice in the palm of his left hand and carefully cut it in half with the light blade in his right hand. Enlarge its image and project it onto that wall. Qishuang handed the cut rice to the administrator, who was adjusting the machine next to him, and gestured to glance at the empty wall behind him. Yes, sir. The administrator carefully took the cut rice, bowed his head and responded, and then started the projection. After about 5 minutes of fiddling, a clear image appeared on the blank wall behind Qishuang, a giant rice that had been cut. The old farmers were stunned. The ninjas were really amazing. The rice, which was originally only the size of a grain of rice, had been enlarged into a huge image with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Even though they were old and had blurred eyes, they could see the tiny wrinkles on the rice husk clearly. Seeing this, Qishuang immediately gathered chakra in the palm of his hand, and after the ice property was transformed, he shaped it into a 3-meter long teaching stick. He used the ice teaching stick to point at the phantom on the wall, and began to explain the structure of rice flowers to many old farmers. This is a pistil of the rice flower, this is the stamen, this is. The old farmers listened very carefully. After living for such an old age, today was an eye-opener. There are so many secrets hidden in that small rice grain. After explaining the structure of the rice flower, Qishuang said, when the rice blooms, the outer shell of the rice, that is, the lemma and palea, will slowly open, and the stamens will stick out of the shell to receive sunlight and absorb heat. When the stamen absorbs enough heat, the anther on its top will open and release pollen. As he said, he pointed at the top of the stamen, which looked like cotton candy. Then, the ice pointer moved down and pointed at the pistil in the center of the rice grain, and continued, in the absence of wind, the pollen will naturally fall on the stigma of this pistil, and pollination will be successful. The old farmers were fascinated by what they heard and nodded subconsciously. Oh, so that's how it is. Suddenly, an old farmer cautiously asked, excuse me, sir, if the wind blows when the rice is blooming, what will happen? Qishuang smiled and said, you actually already have the answer in your heart, why ask me again? Hearing this, the old farmer sighed heavily. His face was not very good. Several old farmers next to him thought carefully and suddenly said, the anther of rice flowers is as big as sesame seeds, and the pollen inside is probably smaller than the eye of a pin. Once the wind blows, the pollen will fly everywhere, and the possibility of pollination will be greatly reduced. In the end, those rice grains will grow into empty shells. After thinking this through, they finally understood why the rice yield of that season would be very bad after every strong wind during the flowering season. Soon, many old farmers also reached a consensus. Strong winds will affect the pollination of rice flowers. Qishuang motioned for everyone to be quiet, and then said, the pollen of rice flowers can be spread between different plants. If it's just a breeze, the impact won't be too great. As long as the pollen falls on the pistil, the pollination is considered successful. But if there is a strong wind and heavy rain, it will be very troublesome. After hearing this, everyone nodded. According to this adult, the anthers need to absorb the heat of the sun to release pollen. In rainy weather, the temperature is very low, and the anthers are naturally difficult to open. In this way, the pollination of rice flowers will also be greatly affected. Combined with their years of planting experience, if it encounters rainy weather during the flowering period, the rice yield of that season will indeed be much lower. Qishuang pointed at the image of the pistil on the wall with an ice pointer and said, and our goal, the first step of hybrid breeding, is to ask you to use artificial methods to collect specific anthers, to pollinate the pistil of the target rice. If you don't know about rice flowers, you can go to Baidu. I really didn't make it up. Chapter 605 Pollination. The old farmers shook their heads after hearing this. Sir, artificial pollination is indeed a good way to achieve hybridization, but we are all over 50 years old and our eyes are blurry. We simply cannot accurately collect anthers and pollinate the pistils of rice flowers. A rice grain is no bigger than a fingernail, and the pistils contained in it are even smaller. Not to mention collecting anthers for pollination. They can't even distinguish the pistils in each rice grain. The reason they can distinguish them now is that the projector amplifies the image. Qishuang motioned for everyone to be quiet, and then said, don't worry, I know your physical condition, so I will ask them to purchase, or make appropriate tools, to assist you in completing the early stages of artificial pollination. After saying that, he immediately winked at a group of administrators next to him. Many managers nodded immediately and silently took note of the Lord's request. The old farmers didn't say anything else. Qishuang continued to say to the many elders, because of the uncertainty and instability of hybridization results, our breeding requires a lot of breeding experiments. So, I decided to divide you into several groups. Each group is responsible for studying and breeding a rice characteristic, and finally select the best one. Because of the dominant and recessive nature of genes, it is not 100% successful to let a rice exchange genes through hybridization, absorb the characteristics of another rice, and express them. Only through a large number of experimental screenings can we get results. Therefore, the more people study the same research topic, the larger the amount of data will naturally be, and it will certainly be easier to get results. An old farmer standing in the front asked seriously, we have roughly understood the hybrid breeding principle and artificial pollination that the adults mentioned. However, how should we start with the specific breeding experiments? There must be a primary and secondary distinction among the hybrid rice seeds in each group, right? They were very happy to know the research direction, but they had collected at least dozens of rice seeds from the entire water kingdom. Even if they chose the best standard, they could combine countless possibilities. I really don't know how to start. Qishuang thought for a moment, and slowly said to the old man, considering that the land and water quality of each island in the land of water are different, the types of rice that are more suitable for planting in each region are also different. You should select the best local rice seeds in our Kirigakure village as the main hybrid mother, and the other rice seeds as secondary, as the hybrid father. Let our Kirigakure rice seeds absorb the excellent characteristics of the other rice seeds, so as to increase the yield. Local rice seeds are more suitable for the local growing environment. It is obviously more appropriate to use them as mother plants for improvement than to use rice seeds from other regions as mother plants. The old farmers had no objection to this. Such a good thing as improving rice seeds should naturally be used in their own village first, and as for other places in the land of water, it will be discussed later. Qishuang patted the catalyst next to him and continued, you can use this catalyst to speed up the growth of the seedlings, but you must be careful not to over-catalyze. If you accidentally over-catalyze, and cause the rice to self-pollinate prematurely, then your artificial pollination will be meaningless. At this point, he thought for a moment and added, in order to ensure the accuracy of artificial pollination and reduce the interference of rice self-pollination, I want you to stop catalysis and observe closely after the rice seeds head. Wait until the inner and outer palea of the rice open and the stamens stick out of the husk. Immediately use tools to cut off the stamens on the female rice ears. This should greatly reduce the impact of rice self-pollination. As for the stamens on the male rice seeds, retain them for the time being. Wait until noon, when the sun is sufficient, cut them off, place them above the female rice ears and shake them gently, so that the pollen can be shaken off onto the female rice ears, thereby achieving the purpose of artificial pollination. The pistil is different from the stamen. The pistil is the key to the final formation of the rice, and cannot be lost. Therefore, he could not take the risk of letting these old farmers directly touch the stamens to the pistils to achieve artificial pollination. If these clumsy guys hurt the pistils, it would be a joke if the rice after artificial pollination could not be filled with pulp. An old farmer with a long beard heard this and said, according to what you said, the mother rice seeds are the key to our final harvest, and the father rice seeds are only responsible for providing pollen. We can cut off the stamens of the mother rice seeds, and then transplant some of the father rice seeds around the mother rice seeds. Then wait until noon, use a fan to create some breezes, blow the pollen, and make it fly to the rice ears of the mother rice seeds. This two-pronged approach can increase the success rate of pollination. Qishuang nodded repeatedly, and said with a smile, the old man is right. This can indeed increase the success rate of pollination, but you must remember it. Be sure to mark the mother rice seeds and tie a red rope or something. Be careful not to forget which one is a mother rice seed in the future. As a professional farmer, he improved his pollination method after only listening to a general idea. It was even more convenient than the method he proposed, but the success rate of wind pollination was not that high. To ensure the success rate of pollination, I suggest that you continue pollination for a few more days, and then use the catalyst to ripen the mother plant. Qishuang earnestly advised the farmers, whether it is through shaking the anthers or blowing pollen by wind, the success rate of pollination cannot be guaranteed to be 100%, and it is safer to repeat it many times. Well, what you said is right. The farmers nodded and agreed. Qishuang continued, when the first generation of hybrid rice matures, all the rice seeds produced will inevitably be of varying quality. When they grow up and mature, some will look like the mother rice seeds. Some will look like the father rice seeds, and some will even look like neither. And we naturally cannot tell the quality of these seeds with our naked eyes. Therefore, all the seeds after the first generation of hybridization need to be bred and ripened, and finally we will select the most satisfactory ones to keep as the second generation mother seeds, and discard the rest. Then, we have two choices. Qishuang raised a finger, and said, first, go directly into the stage of breeding selection. Cultivate the second generation mother rice seeds alone, continuously ripen them, select, ripen, and select, and finally get the final result we want. Then he raised his second finger. The second is to postpone the breeding selection. Treat the second generation of female rice seeds in the same way as the first generation of female rice seeds, and continue to crossbreed with the male rice seeds, or crossbreed once, twice, 3 times. Finally, use the previous method, ripen, select, to get the result. The first method is more convenient, but it is obviously not as accurate as the second method. How to choose the direction of the experiment is up to you to decide. After saying that, he let out a long breath. He has taught everything he can about crossbreeding. He doesn't know the rest of the actual breeding and operation, so he can only leave it to this group of experienced old farmers to improvise. Don't rush. It's almost done. It's almost done. Fill in the first few holes, and farming will basically be over. Chapter 606 January. An old farmer standing in the front row thought for a moment and said seriously, then let's try both plans. After entering the breeding selection stage, we only need to repeat the planting and selection, and we don't need many people at all. We can definitely carry out the two plans together. Hearing this, the other old farmers nodded. Well, not bad, not bad. Indeed, we can carry out both plans together. Qishuang saw it and said with a smile, since you have your own plans, let's do it according to your ideas. Now, I declare that the first task of the Ministry of Agriculture rice hybrid breeding has officially begun. I hope that before the next rice season in the Hidden Mist village is planted, I can see your results. Breeding through artificial selection is simple and crude, just like natural evolution. It originally took countless generations to complete, but under the catalysis of white Zetsus would release chakra, it was possible to succeed in a short period of time. After hearing this, the old farmers rubbed their hands and were eager to try. They were also eager to cultivate new rice varieties. Once this hybrid breeding method is successful, it means that old crops will usher in new changes, and the entire Kirigakure agriculture will be completely renewed. Agricultural cultivation, which has remained unchanged for thousands of years, has finally ushered in a turning point in their generation. After the explanation, Qishuang left the Ministry of Agriculture happily, and the rest of the more detailed and specific work will be handed over to others. Time flies, and another month has passed. The dams at the upstream and downstream estuaries have been built, but the R&D department has not yet completed the technique of purifying seawater. The engineering department had to leave enough space for improvement inside the dam to facilitate further adjustments to the dam function in the future. The only thing to be thankful for is that the R&D department has already had an idea of the technique for purifying seawater and is no longer clueless as it was at the beginning. It is also thanks to the Kirigakure village's expertise in water escape, and it has a very rich collection of water escape materials, which gives it a natural advantage in the research of water escape. If the other 4 villages were to study the technique of purifying seawater, I'm afraid they would be in the dark and wouldn't even be able to find a clue. As for the task of studying electricity conversion and replacing chakra, it had to be temporarily shelved due to the obstruction of the seawater purification technique. Sir, the first generation of hybrid rice that combines the advantages of multiple rice varieties has been born. A manager rushed into the office of the Minister of Agriculture with a test tube in his hand. Finally, it's done. That's great. Qishuang behind the desk was also very excited. 2 by 2, after repeated hybridization and blending, the first generation of hybrid rice with the native rice of Kirigakure village as the mother parent was finally born. Taking the test tube handed over by the administrator and looking at the several rice seeds clearly visible in the test tube, Qishuang smiled and asked, "Is this the final product, or the initial test product?" The administrator said excitedly, "I heard from those old farmers, agricultural technicians that this is the initial test product, and its characteristics are not stable enough, but it only needs to be repeatedly cultivated and selected, and finally a stable new variety can be obtained." The emergence of new varieties has to make these administrators look at those old guys who only know how to farm with a new look, and even respect them verbally, then let them speed up the process. I hope to catch up with the rice planting time of this season in Kirigakure. Qishuang stared at the rice seeds in the test tube and ordered without looking back. At that time, the new varieties will be distributed, and a few guys will be found as demonstration representatives. When the next rice harvest comes, it will not be difficult to promote the replacement of Kirigakure rice seeds by comparing the new and old varieties. Yes. The administrator suppressed the joy in his heart and slowly retreated. Taking advantage of his good mood, Qishuang left the Ministry of Agriculture and prepared to go out for a walk. The streets were bustling with people, and it was getting more and more lively every day. Because of the implementation of the new system, the relationship between the ninjas has eased a lot, and they don't have to be on guard all the time like before. The harmony between the upper level ninjas has also made the lives of the lower level people in Kirigakure less depressing than before, and kind smiles can be seen everywhere. Not long after, Qishuang came to the fountain square in the center of the village. After the fountain square was built, Qishuang was moved here again, locked in the pool with a cold chain, leaving only his head above the water. He also arranged for the mist ninja to take turns watching in the dark for 24 hours. "Tell me, what did you see here?" Repeating the last question, Nana Shuang stood in the pool and asked the shark-faced man seriously. Looking around the increasingly prosperous and popular streets, Qishuang replied seriously, "I see vitality. Kirigakure is radiating new vitality and is recovering at a miraculous speed. It seems to be better than before. He said the last sentence unconfidently. Although the current Kirigakure is still different from before the civil strife, he always feels that something is different. There is no longer the depressing cold atmosphere before. Instead, there is a warm feeling. Hearing this, Qishuang let out a long sigh and said, "It seems that you are not hopeless. However, this alone is far from enough. Wait a little longer. When the time is right, I will give you a final judgment. Whether it is life or death, it is all up to you." After saying this, he turned around and left without looking back. "Wait, you bastard. What do you want?" Unfortunately, no matter how Hashigaki-san called in the pool, the back did not mean to stop and disappeared at the corner of the street. On the other hand, despite the strict confidentiality, the news of the birth of the first generation of hybrid rice experimental products of the Ministry of Agriculture was leaked through other channels. After all, there is no impenetrable wall in the world. Many spies lurking in Kirigakure also focused their attention on the seemingly useless Ministry of Agriculture, preparing to investigate further. However, when they really started to investigate, they found that the Ministry of Agriculture's information confidentiality was ridiculously high, not much worse than other core departments. They even found that Kirigakure Zenbu had put a seal on the old farmers in the Ministry of Agriculture, so they couldn't get any secrets out of them. It was at this time that many spies lurking in Kirigakure finally realized that they might have overlooked the importance of the Ministry of Agriculture. Otherwise, the confidentiality of the Ministry of Agriculture would never be so exaggerated. Many spies regretted it, but it was too late. If they had paid more attention when the Ministry of Agriculture was first established, they wouldn't be in today's predicament. In the early morning, after checking the posts, the administrator in charge of roll call came to the office of the Ministry of Agriculture. "Report to the adults. 4 agricultural technicians are absent today," the visitor said seriously. In the past, this group of old technicians were the most active in taking up their posts, because their salaries would be deducted if they were absent. Unless there was an accident and they couldn't come, those old technicians would also ask for leave and report, and would never be absent without reason. It was really strange that 4 people didn't come today and didn't ask for leave. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607 Start. Hearing such a report, Qishuang had a bad premonition. Not long after the first generation of hybrid rice test products came out, someone disappeared. This time was really strange. Qishuang immediately ordered his subordinates, send someone to their home to see if there was anything that delayed them. If there is no one at home, then go to the Anbu in my name to issue a task and ask them to help check it out. Tell them that if they are alive, they must see the person, and if they are dead, they must see the body. Hearing his tough tone, the person who came did not dare to say anything more and immediately retreated. About an hour later, the administrator who reported the news came back, and a masked Mist Ninja was beside him. When Qishuang saw the mask, the ominous feeling in his heart became stronger. Because that was the Enbu of the mist. This also means that those absent agricultural technicians may have had an accident. Then, the administrator who came back reported a sad news to him. Reporting to the master, the 4 absent technicians are not at home, so I followed your instructions and went to the Anbu to issue a search mission. What happened next? Qishuang sat on the chair and asked expressionlessly, her eyes already on the Anbu Mist Ninja. The Anbu Mist Ninja immediately looked back and said, after our search, the 4 missing agricultural technicians have all been found. But, the Anbu Mist Ninja was about to say something but stopped. Go on. Qishuang's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. The Anbu Mist Ninja paused and said, 3 of the 4 people are dead, and the only one alive has also become mentally ill. After our investigation, we found that the seal in his brain showed signs of being touched by someone. It is because the seal counterattacked and damaged the brain cells that he became mentally ill. Preliminary estimates suggest that it should be caused by spies from the other 4 villages who forcibly explored intelligence, maybe 1 village, maybe 2 villages, or maybe all 4 villages. Hearing this, Qishuang suddenly felt a headache. What was supposed to come finally came. The 5 major villages secretly planted spies in each other's territory to gather intelligence. Is there any possibility for the one who is still alive to recover? He asked the Anbu Mist Ninja with a little expectation. No way. The Anbu Mist Ninja shook his head and sighed. That kind of seal is specially created to protect intelligence. Once an external force explores, it will fight back and destroy the brain cells of the recipient to achieve the purpose of protecting intelligence. The cause of death of the 3 dead is that their brains were severely damaged by the seal, and the one who is still alive is very lucky. In addition to preventing the enemy from exploring intelligence, destroying intelligence is also a means of keeping secrets, and it is also the ultimate means. Hearing this, Qishuang suddenly fell silent. The cost of keeping secrets is somewhat high. Seeing that he didn't speak, the other 2 didn't dare to say a word. For a while, the only sound in the room was their breathing. After a long while, when his mood was calm, Qishuang said to the Anbu Mist Ninja, "Our people can't die in vain. We must dig those guys out for me. Blood for blood, tooth for tooth." As for letting the spies planted in other villages to launch revenge, he also thought about it, but he quickly extinguished this idea. Because those spies do not exist for such boring purposes. If revenge causes the exposure of one's own spies, it is really stupid. Yes. The Anbu Mist Ninja responded, and immediately turned around and left consciously. Qishuang turned around and instructed the administrator who reported the news, "Don't forget the pension work for the families of the deceased. Let everyone in the Mist Village see it. Even if they are dead, their families will be properly resettled, so that someone will be willing to join our department." In addition to leaving a good impression on the people of Mist Village, pensions for the families of the deceased can also appease the people in the Ministry of Agriculture. If they are abandoned like old shoes, the Ministry of Agriculture will definitely be in turmoil, which is not conducive to development. After receiving the order, the administrator slowly retreated. Watching the office door close again, Qishuang silently said, "Since they didn't succeed this time, those guys probably won't attack other agricultural technicians again. Unless those people are sure of breaking the seal of the Anbu, they won't risk being exposed and wasting their efforts." However, although those spies won't attack people, they won't stop investigating the Ministry of Agriculture. Thinking of this, he sighed again. "We need to assign more people to watch the catalyst. If it is stolen, it will be a big loss." Beisetsu, this guy, can be seen everywhere. When he doesn't need it, when he needs it, he can't find any. Now, the agricultural reform of Kirigakure has just started, and Beisetsu's power is extremely needed. If the catalyst is destroyed or stolen by spies at this time, it will cause a serious blow. After deciding on a coping plan, Qishuang put aside these mundane matters and took out a scroll from his pocket. It was the handwritten scroll of water transformation technique he took from Shuaiyu. Everything in Kirigakure was on track, and he was ready to treat the meridian injuries on Ming's body. There was no doubt that blood elimination was powerful, and Ming herself had learned a lot, so it was really slim to expect her to fully control the power of Eclipse Escape and then treat it. Therefore, Qishuang planned to treat Ming's injuries by herself. The reason why Ming's injuries were difficult to treat was mainly because of the resistance of Eclipse Escape. The power of Eclipse Escape was too strong, which resulted in the chakra being offset by Eclipse Escape before the general medical ninjutsu took effect, and it had no effect at all. If you want to treat Ming's injuries, you must use a medical ninjutsu that is powerful enough to resist Eclipse Escape. With this idea in mind, Qishuang focused on Yang Escape. Yin Escape and Yang Escape are the two most unique of the 7 basic escape techniques. These two powers are not only extremely difficult to master, but also particularly strange and powerful. Yin Escape can turn the virtual into the real, and mainly changes the mental power. Yang Escape can change the body shape, and mainly changes the vitality. Yin Escape and Yang Escape actually represent the two most fundamental powers of human soul and body. When Yin and Yang are combined, it is a real life. Chakra is a mixture of spiritual power and life force, which is actually the most primitive yin and yang power. However, ordinary people do not understand the changes of yin and yang. Even if they have the power of yin and yang, they will not use it. Instead, they transform the power of yin and yang into 5 kinds of escape techniques: wind, thunder, water, fire, and earth. Wind, thunder, water, fire, and earth merge with each other to evolve into bloodline limits, bloodline elimination, bloodline net. After a big circle, it finally synthesizes the power of yin and yang and returns to the starting point. I have to say that this is really a great irony. Therefore, in Qishuang's view, it is more appropriate to say that the 7 basic escape techniques are 7 single attribute escape techniques. Everything is actually derived from yin and yang. The power of yin and yang is the source of many escape techniques. Don't doubt it. The culture of Neon Country is learned from our great country, so many things are the same. The so-called yin and yang derivative theory is similar to our definition. Take I gives birth to 2 yin and 2 yin and yang give birth to 4 images. Take I corresponds to the most primitive natural energy, which then changes into yin and yang, giving birth to the human body and soul, and humans master various changes, and yin and yang derive the 4 images, 5 element. Let me say again, the yin and yang power given to Naruto and Sasuke by 6 paths is not a simple yin and yang escape change. Many people confuse this. Chapter 608 Yuandao. Unfortunately, in this world, the only one who can really see through this is Qishuang, a prophetic time traveler. Because of the special nature of the power of yin and yang escape techniques are extremely difficult to practice, but once they are practiced, they are the kind of extremely powerful forbidden techniques and secret techniques, such as the 3 families of Ino, Deer and Shao and Konoha. The shadow imitation technique of the Nara clan transforms the virtual shadow into a physical entity, which is yin escape. The body and mind transformation technique of the Yamanaka clan directly acts on the human soul, which is yin escape. The multiplication technique of the Akimichi clan makes the body huge and changes the body shape, which is yang escape. Or like Kakuzu's earth grudge, plundering other people's heart meridians for his own use, and changing his own body structure, which also belongs to yang escape. Any escape technique involving the changes of yin and yang is extraordinary, and can easily create a powerful ninja family. And yang escape is in charge of physical changes and involves the power of life. All techniques that can bring the dead back to life are related to it. In other words, without the changes of yang escape, it is impossible to bring the dead back to life. Only this kind of yang escape can cure the meridian injury of Ming. Ordinary medical ninjutsu is nothing more than using chakra to stimulate cell division and accelerate wound healing, which is far from the changes of yang escape. Qishuang's purpose is to explore the changes of yang escape and finally apply it to treat the meridian injury of Ming. Although the water escape of the kid family is called water escape, it actually hides the changes of yang escape. If not, it is impossible to turn a living person into a pool of clear water. However, in terms of depth, it is a certain gap compared with Kakuzu's earth grudge and Akimichi's multiplication of transformation. It is a technique that is mainly based on water escape and supplemented by yang escape. However, it is precisely because of this that he has the opportunity to peek into the secret of yang escape. If the changes of yang escape contained in the technique are too profound, it would be difficult for him to get started. As the days passed, Qishuang's analysis of the water escape became deeper and deeper, and gradually he found the threshold of yang escape. However, as his knowledge of Yang Dun's transformations improved, he became more awed by its power. Such power is too strong and profound, and it is absolutely beyond the reach of ordinary people. It is no wonder that the techniques involving yin and yang transformations need to be passed down from generation to generation. Without the guidance of predecessors, future generations may not even be able to touch the threshold, let alone practice the secret technique. Qishuang was only able to analyze the Yang Dun's transformation contained in the water transformation technique by relying on his own higher level of Bing Dun's cultivation, and by analogy, plus the alternative way of thinking in his previous life. But that's all. If he wants to further master the Yang Dun's transformation and use it to treat injuries, there is still a long way to go. Sir, good news. There is good news. An administrator from the Ministry of Agriculture rushed into Qishuang's office excitedly. What good news? Qishuang stopped writing and looked up curiously. On the desk, there was all the Yangdun information he obtained after analyzing the water transformation technique. At present, his understanding of Yangdun was too fragmentary to be applied. He could only record it first, and then slowly organize it and integrate it. When a certain amount of knowledge is accumulated, the qualitative change caused by quantitative change will be mastered. After countless generations of catalytic cultivation, the characteristics of the new rice seeds have gradually stabilized. Those old agricultural technicians said that they can be put into sowing this season. The manager who came to report the news said, while taking out a test tube from his pocket, there were 7 or 8 grains of rice in it. Here, he handed over the test tube in his hand. Can it be officially put into large-scale planting? This is really exciting good news. Qishuang put down the pen in his hand and took the test tube. After several months of time and countless manpower and material resources of the Ministry of Agriculture, the new rice seeds were finally born. Looking at the grains in the test tube carefully, he told the administrator, "Call all the agricultural technicians below. I have something to say." Yes. The man turned around and left quickly. After putting the test tube in his pocket and tidying up the information on the desk, Qishuang slowly left the office. When he arrived at the conference hall, many people had already arrived. Everyone had a happy smile on their face. They all knew what today meant. A new variety of rice was born in Wuhan. After nearly half an hour, when everyone in the experimental field outside the village came back, Qishuang stood in the middle of the hall and said to everyone, "Today is a memorable day. The first breeding task of the Ministry of Agriculture has finally been completed. The people of Wuhan will completely get rid of the plight of hunger, and everyone will have more than enough food to eat. Be proud, be proud. Your names will be passed down through the ages with those rice seeds. Your glory will take root and sprout on the land of Wuhan together with those rice seeds. Rice seeds are with you, and rice seeds live with you." As his voice fell, the emotions of the people below were completely boiling. Rice seeds are with us, and we live with rice seeds. Rice seeds are with us, and we live with rice seeds. Rice seeds are with us, and we live with rice seeds. The fanatical voices of the people in the Ministry of Agriculture gathered into a tsunami, spreading in all directions, attracting the attention of passers-by and residents around. Why are those guys in the Ministry of Agriculture suddenly crazy? A passerby covered his ears. God knows. A pretty woman next to him frowned. And the many spies who have been secretly observing the Ministry of Agriculture also frowned. After this period of inquiries, they also knew that the Ministry of Agriculture was aiming to improve rice varieties, and some of them even secretly went to the experimental fields to see it with their own eyes. Judging from today's situation, the work of rice improvement may have been completed. However, what they wanted to find out was not this, but the specific methods and technologies of rice improvement. However, the Ministry of Agriculture's intelligence prevention was extremely strict. They were exposed for this, and even sacrificed many lurking colleagues, but still did not find out anything substantial. It's really worrying. In the Ministry of Agriculture, Qishuang signaled everyone to be quiet, and then said, "The new rice seeds are not seen by the Kirigakure compatriots outside. It may be troublesome to force them to change the rice seeds in their hands. So, I decided that you in the Ministry of Agriculture should set an example and replace the rice seeds at home this season with the new varieties we cultivated. Let them see the advantages of the new rice seeds. When the next rice season is planted, they will scramble to replace the new rice seeds without our reminder." Hearing his words, the old farmers laughed. "Don't worry, sir, we will definitely use the new rice seeds this season. One season of rice is related to the food rations of a family for half a year. For unfamiliar seeds, the villagers will naturally not rashly replace them. But these rice seeds were planted by them, cultivated and selected bit by bit. They know better than anyone how excellent these new rice seeds are. They are even looking forward to the expressions of the villagers who used to laugh at them for doing nothing in the Ministry of Agriculture when they see the superabundant harvest of new rice seeds. Sir, the birth of this new rice variety is of great significance. Why don't you give it a name?" An old farmer suggested loudly. "Yes, give it a name." Everyone agreed. Unable to resist the enthusiasm of the crowd, Qishuang thought for a while and said, "At the beginning of the Yuan dynasty, all things were born, so let's call it Yuan Dao." Why is it called Yuandeo? Everyone knows it in their hearts. Haha. Unfortunately, this is not a prehistoric fairy tale, otherwise I would have given you and Leo a saint of merit. Chapter 609 Double Happiness. After finishing the work of the Ministry of Agriculture, Nanashi came to the Mizukage building, ready to tell Ming the good news. It is better to share happiness with others than to enjoy it alone. Before he could knock on the door, his assistant Mei opened the door and walked out, almost bumping into him. Sir Nanashi, Sir Mizukage is about to look for you, Mei said with a smile, and made way. Looking for me? Nanashi walked in suspiciously, and Terumi Mei was sitting behind the desk, staring at him straight. You will go down. I have something to say to Nanashi-John in alone. Terumi Mei immediately waved her hand to send the others in the office away. After hearing this, everyone quietly left. Mei walked at the end and gently closed the door. Why are you so cautious? Nanashi walked to the desk curiously. In the R&D department, the technique for purifying seawater has been completely completed. After my personal inspection, it can be put into use. Terumi Mei sat behind the desk and said softly with her chin in her hand. 100% purified? Nanashi was a little surprised. Terumi shook her head and said, it's not 100% purified, but it's very close to the quality of fresh water. I think it should be able to suppress the damage caused by seawater erosion to the minimum. Qishuang felt helpless and sighed. Then let's use it for now, and then let the R&D department slowly improve the technique. Various mineral salts in seawater will slowly accumulate and deposit in the soil on both sides of the canal. Once the content of mineral salts exceeds the standard, it will cause soil salinization, threatening the survival of groundwater and plants and animals. This is also the fundamental purpose of seawater purification. Although the R&D department's technique is not perfect at the moment, it is better than nothing. So, you came to me to plan to place Vulpix? Qishuang asked tentatively. Yes. Terumi nodded and said, although the dam has been built and put into use, the function of purifying seawater has not yet been truly started. And the erosion of the two sides of the canal by seawater is ongoing all the time. It would be better for us to place Vulpix as soon as possible and start the ability to purify seawater. Solving the seawater problem as quickly as possible is the result she wants. Well, I'll take action tonight. Qishuang nodded, then said, however, I don't know the layout of the R&D department at the dam, and I need them to show me the specific design. Otherwise, I don't know where to put the Vulpix. Terumi immediately took out 2 documents from the drawer of her desk and handed them over, saying, one of them is the layout structure of the seawater purification barrier. You must place the Vulpix in a fixed energy center. The other is the sealing formula of the Vulpix on the bronze tripod. After you place the Vulpix, open the seal a little bit, and the chakra overflowing from the seal will serve as energy to drive the entire seawater purification barrier. As for the hiding and protection of the Vulpix, it's up to you. As she spoke, a very cautious look appeared on her face. Don't worry. Qishuang gave a comforting smile in return, and then said, I know the importance of the matter, and will not be perfunctory. After that, he put both documents into his pocket. But then again, I saw you looked so happy when you came in. Is there any good news? After finishing the business, Terumi Mei asked curiously. Good news, a big good news. Qishuang raised the corner of her mouth, and then took out a test tube from her pocket, and handed it over. Terumi Mei took it suspiciously, and saw that it contained 7 or 8 golden grains. Why are you giving this to me? She was a little confused. This is the research result of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is a new rice variety called Yuandeo. Qishuang explained with a smile. New variety? Terumi Mei was stunned for a moment, and then carefully looked at the grains in the test tube on the side, and said in surprise, I don't see what's different. She felt that this was no different from ordinary grains. Qishuang smiled and said, I have ordered the members of the Ministry of Agriculture to use the new rice seeds for sowing this season. When the rice matures this season, you will know what is different about this new rice seed. After hearing this, Terumi Mei immediately understood that, since he was so confident, it meant that this new rice must be better than the existing rice seeds in Kirigakure. At least, the average yield must be higher than the existing rice seeds. Then can you tell me how much this new rice seed can increase production? Terumi Mei asked expectantly. Qishuang thought for a while and said slowly, based on the current measurement data of the Ministry of Agriculture, the new rice seed should be able to increase production by 70% to 80%. When the rice seeds are further optimized during the next sowing season, it should be possible to double the production. When he said this, even he couldn't help but feel a little proud. This is a new variety that was cultivated based on the biological data he brought. Without him, at the speed of development of this world, it is unknown when this new rice variety will appear. Double? Terumi Mei was stunned after hearing this. This effect is too powerful. Perhaps in terms of numbers, just doubling is nothing. But the lives of the lower class people cannot be calculated by simple addition and subtraction. If the rice production doubles, it means that the villagers of Kirigakure only need to work half of the previous years to meet the food needs of the year. They can also save more time, go out to work, or do other livelihoods without being tied to the land. Or, use 1 year to grow 2 years of food and exchange the excess food for money. Not only that, after the trouble of high-priced materials some time ago, she has already understood that economic problems affect the whole body. Once the grain production increases, it will also promote the development of the foundations such as winner making and noodle shops, and then stimulate the recovery of the entire Kirigakure economy. The significance of this new type of rice is really extraordinary. Okay, I still have to go back to study the seal of the Vulpix and the structure of the barrier for seawater purification to prepare for the action tonight, so I won't stay here with you. After taking back the rice seed sample from Terumi, Nana Frost said goodbye and left. At midnight, the originally noisy village returned to silence, and only a few lights were left on the streets. Qishuang quietly came to the fountain square in the center of the village, and found several Mist ninjas hiding around to guard. I want to do something, and I don't want anyone to see it. You keep watch around me, and don't allow anyone to get close. He solemnly ordered them. Yes. Several people responded, and immediately scattered around, and quietly sent a message to the rest of their companions around to inform them. It's the middle of the night, sir. Why are you here instead of sleeping? Looking at the young man coming, Hashigaki Kisame lost all sleep. Although he was locked here, and had no freedom, he still did not relax the vigilance of a ninja. Therefore, when Qishuang approached, he woke up immediately. Doubling the production may not seem like much. In fact, the difference is huge. If the land in the mist could originally produce grain to feed 500,000 people, it can now feed 1 million. Grain production is also the key to determining the population. If the food production is not enough, even if more people are forcibly moved in, they will not be able to feed the people. Therefore, many historical novels only increase the population, but not the food production, which is actually nonsense. What will the extra people eat? Chapter 610. Useless. I'm here to do something. It has nothing to do with you. You should just go to sleep. Qishuang said expressionlessly, looking at the shark face floating on the water. What if I say no? Kisame smiled and cracked his mouth. This guy came here in the middle of the night without sleeping. He must not be here to see the night view. He was very curious about what the other party was going to do. That's not up to you. Qishuang's face darkened, and the power under his feet burst out. In an instant, he rushed in front of Hashigaki Kisame. Boom. He punched down decisively, and Kisame was knocked unconscious and sank into the water. Then, he quickly formed a set of hand seals and mobilized chakra to transform the nature of water. Water style, mist hidden technique. In an instant, chakra turned into water mist and seeped out from his body and quickly spread to the surroundings. In just a few breaths, the entire fountain square, including some surrounding buildings, was covered. What does this lord want to do? Looking at the misty fog in front of him, a guard in charge of the mist ninja whispered to his companion next to him. Who knows? The companion shrugged and pouted. This lord is peculiar. No one can guess his mind. Perhaps only our Mizukage knows what he is thinking. At this point, he couldn't help but reveal a meaningful smile. This lord is rampant in the mist village. No one dares to interfere, and only their Mizukage has the ability to restrain him. Hearing this, the mist ninja glanced around and said slyly, you said, when will our Mizukage and this lord? He. Although he was still unsatisfied, his companion still guessed what he meant. That's hard to say. The companion lowered his voice and said carefully, in addition to being the Mizukage, Lady Terumi Medi is also the patriarch of the Terumi family. And those bloodline limit families value blood inheritance the most. In order to maintain the purity of their blood, they will not easily marry outsiders. I'm afraid it will be difficult to deal with the matter between Lady Terumi Medi and this gentleman. That's true. The Miss Ninja nodded, with a little more regret on his face. In the fog, after creating thick fog to block the view, Qishuang found the location of the spring below the fountain. He turned his chakra into a thin thread probe, went upstream, and explored the depths of the spring. Soon, a cold chain like a giant python appeared in his chakra detection. Found it. Qishuang showed joy on his face, and then inserted the chakra probe into the cold chain. After resonating with the remaining chakra in the cold chain, the ice chain hidden in the underground water vein was once again under his control. Get up. Under his control, Han Lion slowly poked his head out of the spring like a giant python awakening from hibernation. A frozen copper tripod and a half black half white monster on the tripod appeared on the water. Long time no see, little guy who wants to save his mother. Qishuang smiled and greeted the frozen black Zetsu. Unfortunately, Black Zetsu was frozen and unable to move. Facing his mockery, he was furious, but had nowhere to vent. He couldn't even blink. Don't even think about getting out in this life while I'm here. As for Kaguya Otsutsuki, don't even think about saving her. You don't have a chance. Qishuang leaned close to the ice sculpture's ear and sneered. Hearing him mention the name Kaguya Otsutsuki, Black Zetsu was completely panicked. At first, he thought that the other party's words like save mom were just a joke to him. It was not, until now that he realized that this sentence was a hint that he was going to break the seal and save his mother. This guy knew too much, which was completely beyond his expectation. Fortunately, he had already made a backup plan, so he didn't fail miserably. It was a blessing in disguise. I hope that without the company of Vulpix, your life as a prisoner won't be too lonely. Qishuang teased while performing ice escape transformation to separate the bronze tripod from Black Zetsu. Then, he seemed to remember something and patted his forehead and said, "Oh, I almost forgot that you are 2 in 1. With White Zetsu accompanying you, you can't feel lonely. Then I wish you a happy rest of your prisoner life." After saying that, he controlled the cold chain and dragged the human-shaped ice sculpture still connected to the cold chain slowly into the spring. With the isolation of the fairy ice and the thick strata, unless he dragged the cold chain out again for others to see, no one would know that Vulpix was taken away by him. As for the treatment of Black Zetsu, he was also helpless. Black Zetsu has no entity, but is a materialized spiritual will attached to White Zetsu. Even if the possessed White Zetsu died, the other party would not die. In addition, the spiritual will body is similar to the existence of the soul, which cannot be destroyed or destroyed, so there is no such thing as death. It can be regarded as true immortality. Even if Qishuang caught it, he could not find any way to deal with it. He could only lock it with cold chains and ice forever, trapping it here forever under his eyes. Originally, he had thought of throwing it into the deep sea trench, never to see the light of day, but because the White Zetsu possessed by Black Zetsu has the ability to communicate with other White Zetsu telepathically, once Black Zetsu reconnects with the White Zetsu outside, it will not be long before he can escape. Qishuang did not forget that Nagato's pair of reincarnation eyes have the ability to absorb chakra. Even his so-called eternal fairy ice will decay because of the absorption of chakra. Therefore, he can only lock Black Zetsu in the hidden mist village to cut off the chance of others to rescue him. When the cold chain dragged Black Zetsu back to the underground water vein, Qishuang looked at the frozen bronze tripod next to him. "Now, it's your turn to play a role, Vulpix." Then, he held the bronze tripod, performed the levitation technique, and quietly rose into the dark night sky. Below, the Miss Ninja Sun Guard found that the thick fog gradually dissipated. When the fountain in the center of the square appeared in their sight, the adult was nowhere to be seen. Where did the adult go? Someone couldn't help but ask. Maybe he went home while we were not paying attention? Someone said casually. Could it be that he came here in the middle of the night just to beat up Ashigaki Kasame? Someone found Kasame who had fainted in the pool. There was a very obvious fist mark on his face. God knows. Maybe the adult just suddenly felt itchy. Someone said jokingly. Just as the mist ninjas were whispering, Nana Frost held the bronze tripod and flew quickly through the night sky, quietly coming to the sky above the dam upstream of the canal. It's not okay to go down like this. Looking at the bronze tripod in his hand, he frowned slightly. Since the dam was built, the mist ninja has been on duty to guard it. If they see this, it will be bad. Then, he used the ice escape clone technique and sent a clone down first. Who is it? As soon as the clone landed, it was immediately discovered by the mist ninja in charge of guarding it. Of course, there was also a reason why the 7 Frost clones did not deliberately conceal it. Chapter 611 Placement. It's me. The 7 Frost clone replied coldly. The mist ninjas on duty came over and took a look. They recognized that it was this person who came. What are you doing here, so late at night? A mist ninja was very alert and took 2 steps back. He asked while being on guard. Influenced by him, the other mist ninjas also showed a defensive look. It was really strange for this sir to appear here at this time. I'm here on purpose to inspect under the order of the Mizukage-sama. Seeing that everyone did not relax their guard, the 7 Frost clone nodded secretly and transformed chakra into cold air to spread around. A layer of white frost condensed on the ground. Now, you should be able to confirm my identity, right? The 7 Frost clone said with a smile. Seeing this, everyone bowed their heads and said, "Hello, Master 7 Frost." In the entire Mist Village, only this person can use ice escape. It is even more impossible for spies from other villages to disguise themselves. Okay, I have something important to do, don't bother me. Qishuang's clone waved his hand to send a few people away and then slowly formed a group of hand seals. Water escape mist hidden technique then. In the confused eyes of several people, white water mist seeped out from the body of that person, quickly covering everything around in the fog. Qishuang's original body in the sky, after seeing the fog spreading below, plunged into it. Then, following the design drawings of the dam in his memory, he and his clone quietly entered the interior of the dam from the entrance, went down to the core area at the bottom, which was also the center of the entire water purification barrier. As for the power generation area, it was still above. According to the drawings given by Ming, the entire barrier for purifying seawater, with the bottom layer of the dam as a core, radiates to the surroundings and spreads throughout the dam body. When the seawater passes through the sluice, it will be purified by the activated barrier and divided into 2. One part is the purified seawater, which flows directly into the canal. The other part is high salinity seawater, which flows into the sea from another waterway on the dam. In short, this is a barrier that separates salt from seawater. After another search, Qishuang finally found the energy core of the barrier. Release. With one hand, he pinched the seal and shouted softly, and the ice on the bronze tripod immediately broke and dissipated into the air. As if sensing something strange, the hidden seal on the bronze tripod lit up, like a layer of glowing white spiderweb, wrapping the entire bronze tripod inside. It was Liu Wei struggling to shake the seal, causing it to have a stress reaction. Don't waste your energy, you can't get out. Qishuang looked at the bronze tripod inside, and then said, I know this is cruel and unfair to you, but you are caught by us. You are a prisoner. You have no choice. If you want to blame the old man Liu Dao. He gave you powerful power, but also gave you the same thinking ability as humans. If you don't have that kind of thinking ability, you are just a simple beast. Maybe you won't be so painful today. As if he understood what he said, the glowing spider web on the seal of the bronze tripod gradually dimmed. But Qishuang knew very well that the six-tailed beast just didn't see any hope of escaping, so it temporarily gave up struggling. Once it had a chance, it would definitely come back again. When the seal disappeared again, Qishuang placed the bronze tripod in the energy core area of the water purification barrier. Just as he was about to open the seal a little bit and connect it to the water purification barrier, he suddenly thought, although they didn't see me taking the six-tailed beast away, I appeared in the central square tonight and appeared here at the dam. This is a fact that can be confirmed. If the water purification barrier is open tonight, I'm afraid it will be difficult not to associate it with me. If people further speculate that the six-tailed beast is here, I'm afraid it's not impossible. The water purification barrier cannot be open tonight. Thinking of this, Qishuang immediately stopped his hand movements and stopped the idea of activating the water purification barrier. In order to avoid suspicion, it would be better to activate it a few days later. Then, he slowly retreated to the entrance of the bottom floor, stood at the connection with the upper floor, put his hands together, closed his eyes, and his mind was clear. He began to absorb natural energy with full concentration. He was going to use the magic to freeze and protect the core area of the entire water purification barrier. In this way, no one could get close to the core area, and no one could know what the core area of the water purification barrier looked like, and no one would know that the six-tailed beast was here. This was also the reason why he dared to use the six-tailed beast as the energy core, and was not afraid of being robbed. With his so-called eternal magic ice blocking it, no one except a limited number of people could take the six-tailed beast away. Even if those people came with the magic to delay time, it would be enough for him to rush to support. About 10 minutes later, Qishuang opened his eyes again, a blue face appeared, and sharp horns grew out of his head. Because he did not deliberately restrain his power, chakra was unscrupulously dissipated in the air, and the temperature of the entire bottom space of the dam dropped sharply, and even a layer of ice crystals nearly 1 finger thick formed on the ground within a radius of dozens of meters. Fortunately, the water purification barrier was composed of array patterns engraved on the dam body, not directly transmitted from the air. As long as the dam is not damaged, the barrier can operate normally. Otherwise, once his magic is used, the operation of the entire water purification barrier will be in trouble. Magic technique ice release eternal ice coffin. The magic chakra turned into cold air and gushed out of his body. Under his control, all of them consciously flowed into the bottom space without any exception. Then, the cold air condensed into ice, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, the entire bottom space, where the water purification area was located, was quickly filled and frozen. Soon, until the condensed magic ice spread to Qishuang's feet, it stopped growing. Dude, please watch here. Qishuang stopped casting the spell, and turned back to his clone. No problem. The clone nodded, and did not refuse. Then he walked to the ice wall at the entrance of the bottom floor, and put his hand on it. As he merged into the ice wall, he said, "My power is only a small part of yours. Just in case, we still need to arrange another suitable person to come and watch." Qishuang's original body replied, "I understand this. Letting you watch is just a temporary measure. However, even if you only have a part of my power, it is enough to kill most of the invaders." That's true. As soon as the voice fell, the clone used the ice escape instant body method and completely merged into the entire fairy ice. No one would have thought that there was such a deadly threat hidden in this ice layer. After returning to the top of the dam and instructing the stationed mist ninja for a while, Qishuang returned to the hidden mist village. After that, 4 days later, he returned to the dam and officially opened the water purification barrier. At this point, the seawater problem in the entire canal was finally solved. Another pit was filled. There are still a few chapters to go, and farming is almost over. Chapter 612 Harvest. With the implementation of the new system, the relationship between the people in the hidden mist village has become more harmonious. The hatred in the past was buried deep in their hearts, and was gradually forgotten. Perhaps because of the reform, the relationship between the ninjas is no longer so tense and wary of each other, and the concept of honoring blood is slowly being erased. The cold-blooded and competitive spirit of the hidden mist ninjas has weakened a lot. Therefore, when the village was preparing to form the 7 ninja swordsmen again, the participation of the ninjas was not very active, and seemed to be lacking in interest. For this reason, Terumi Medi had to terminate the selection of ninja swordsmen and turn her attention to the new generation studying in the school. "What do you think of these children?" Terumi Medi handed a document to Nanashi. Nanashi flipped through it roughly, and it listed the general information of the 7 children. The first one in the row was Sujetsu Kizuki from the Kizuki family. He took a closer look and found that all the children had a certain foundation in swordsmanship, and it could even be said that they were very good at swordsmanship. Before he could ask, Terumi slowly explained, "I asked the teachers in the school to carefully investigate and select these children with a foundation in swordsmanship. We are preparing to train them in a targeted way so that they can take over the ninja swords in the future and become the new generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kirigakure. Targeted training? That's a good idea. Nanashiro nodded and said seriously, however, ninja swords are too dangerous. Even if they are trained from a young age, they can't be directly handed over to these children to use. It's better to let the people below make some imitation knives for them to practice in advance and wait until they are older, then give them the real ninja swords to use. Those children are all just over 10 years old. Holding the legendary ninja swords is no different from a 3-year-old child showing off in the market with thousands of gold. Who knows, one day they will die in a corner. Using imitations instead is not only good for their safety, but also ensures that the ninja swords will not be lost. Terumi rolled her eyes at him and said, "Do you need to tell me this? I've already sent someone to do it." Nanashiro scratched her head awkwardly and quickly changed the subject. "Speaking of ninja swords, I remember there's another ninja sword in the hands of Kirigakure. Has the intelligence department found out where he is? If the other 4 villagers catch it, and the ninja sword is lost, it will be a big trouble." Hearing him mention this, Terumi immediately became serious and said slowly, "Since the situation in Kirigakure has stabilized, I have started to send people to track down Kirigakare's whereabouts. Recently, I heard that he had appeared in the Land of Fire, and the Enbu secretly sneaked into the Land of Fire to investigate. Unfortunately, that guy seems to have evaporated from the face of the earth, and we can't find him, no matter how hard we try." After saying this, she couldn't help but have a trace of worry on her face. The power of a ninja sword is extraordinary and can easily create a powerful ninja. Losing any one of them is a huge loss for Kirigakure. If it is obtained by the other 4 villages, it will be even more disadvantageous to Kirigakure as one village gains and the other loses. Seeing this, Nanashiro whispered to comfort him, "Don't worry, Kirigakure has a ninja sword in his hand, and he has been famous for a long time. It's not that easy for him to die. When he shows up again, I will personally take action and catch him back. By the way, how is the progress of the experiment on electricity conversion to chakra in the R&D department?" Without continuing to discuss the topic of the ninja sword, Terumi raised a new question. Even with Nanashuang's fairy art protection, she still didn't feel at ease with the Vulpix placed at the dam. Only when the R&D department completes the conversion of electricity, allows the dam to generate electricity by itself with the help of Water Conservancy to replace the Vulpix, and returns the Vulpix to the Hidden Mist village, can she really feel at ease? Nanashuang shook her head and sighed. "It's not that simple. It will probably take a long time to complete the research and development. Electricity is also a kind of natural energy. Compared with the attributeless natural energy he absorbs on weekdays, electricity can be detected and perceived by ordinary people. Its utilization threshold is naturally lower than that of the attributeless natural energy that he absorbs, which cannot be perceived by ordinary people. However, the electricity was violent, and the people in this world were superstitious about chakra, so they were not as skilled in using electricity as they were in using chakra. With a weak foundation, the experiment of converting electricity into chakra was naturally very difficult. Even with the help of a fairy who could use natural energy freely, this experiment of converting electricity would not be completed in a short time. "How long do you think it will take?" Terumi asked, turning around. "It will take at least 2 years. Nanashiro shrugged helplessly. "Why does it take so long?" Terumi was stunned. Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, "This is already very fast, my Mizukage-sama. Converting electricity into chakra for use is actually similar to the way I absorbed natural energy to convert chakra for use. You know, it took me nearly 5 years to practice fairy arts back then. This electricity is easier to perceive and control than the natural energy I absorb, and the conversion threshold is lower. It's already amazing that they can complete the research in 2 years. You should be mentally prepared. It may take them longer than 2 years to succeed in the experiment." Hearing this, Terumi twitched her lips, feeling helpless in her heart, and could only give a warning. "Then you should always pay attention to safety over there. Don't worry, if there is an accident, I will rush to support you at any time," Qishuang promised solemnly. At the Ministry of Agriculture, the group of old agricultural technicians planted the first batch of yuan rice. As time passed, many Kirigakure villagers also discovered the rice seedlings that grew particularly well in the rice fields. The difference is really huge. Because everyone's fields are intertwined, and it is also the season for planting rice, almost all the rice fields are planted with rice. The rice seedlings in the fields of the agricultural technicians formed a sharp contrast with the rice seedlings of other families nearby. Soon, they all knew that it was the research and development results of the Ministry of Agriculture, a new rice variety. Especially when the rice seedlings were heading, and the rice was gradually mature, the heavy golden rice ears made many villagers envious. Before the harvest, they estimated that the average yield of the new rice seeds in those rice fields would be at least 50% higher than this. But after the harvest and weighing, the real result shocked all the villagers. The average yield of the new rice seeds was nearly 90% higher than this. In other words, the grain yield of the agricultural technicians who planted the new rice seeds this season was almost doubled compared to previous years. Everyone was amazed by this. The Ministry of Agriculture also took the opportunity to issue a notice. Farmers can exchange a certain amount of old rice seeds for new rice seeds, and everyone flocked to it. The replacement of rice seeds in the entire Kirigakure was a natural process. Everyone was looking forward to the next season's harvest and the Ministry of Agriculture's improvement of new seeds. At the same time, the Ministry of Agriculture was rising, and everyone's treatment also rose several levels. People who used to look down on the Ministry of Agriculture began to look up to it. In school, children gradually began to listen carefully to the old farmers' lectures. They hoped that, after they could no longer become combat ninjas, they would have the opportunity to work in the Ministry of Agriculture. Life in Kirigakure was becoming more stable, and everything was thriving. This year, Kirigakure had 20,000 newborns. The pit of the Ministry of Agriculture was filled. Chapter 613 Progress. Qishuang, after analyzing the water transformation technique of the Ghost Light family, analyzed all the Yang escape techniques in the Mist Hidden Art Library. Unfortunately, even so, it was still not enough for him to create a Yang escape technique that could heal the injuries of the dark. Yang escape is too profound. For this reason, he had to write a letter to ask for help from Orochimaru. That guy is good at studying ninjutsu, likes to practice various forbidden techniques, and is also very proficient in the field of yin and yang escape. For example, the immortal reincarnation mastered by the other party is a forbidden technique involving both yin and yang escape. Although on the surface, it is a kind of summoning technique, but in fact, summoning technique is just a way to move those filthy earth puppets. Summoning technique itself cannot create a new body for the souls of the dead in the world. The truth of that ninjutsu is actually to create a physical body with yang escape, and yin escape controls the soul. The physical body and the soul are combined, so that the filthy earth puppet can be born. If it was just an ordinary summoning technique, Qishuang would have learned it long ago with the incomplete immortal reincarnation scroll on his body. From this, it is clear that Orochimaru is very good at yin-yang escape. It is right to ask that guy for advice. Orochimaru replied unexpectedly straightforwardly, and soon sent someone to send the information related to yang escape to Qishuang. Looking at the thick pile of scrolls on the floor, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, "I owe you a big favor. All the techniques involving yin-yang escape are extremely powerful forbidden techniques, which are secret tricks passed down by every household, and will not be easily leaked. In addition, yin-yang escape is difficult to master and use. Even in the technique library of Kirigakure, there are not many techniques containing the secrets of yang escape. And the yang escape information that Orochimaru sent to Qishuang is more than 5 times that of Kirigakure. Among them, there are also many forbidden techniques related to yang escape, and Qishuang even saw Orochimaru's unique shelling substitute technique. Investment and return must be proportional. No one is a fool. That guy is willing to invest so much, he must have other intentions." Qishuang sighed helplessly. But even if he knew that, he still couldn't refuse the other party's good intentions. He needed this information too much. There is no doubt that Orochimaru's research on yang escape is more than 10 times his. With the other party's research data as a basis, he may be able to create a yang escape technique to treat the injury of the dark. Otherwise, if he really relies on himself to work behind closed doors, God knows when he can succeed. The pile of information sent by Orochimaru is his shortcut to success. Then, Nanashi picked up the scroll of shelling substitute technique. That is an excellent life-saving trick. Anyway, Orochimaru has already sent it and owed a favor, so it would be a waste not to learn it. After browsing the whole article, Nanashi was in trouble again. I already have the chakra mode, which has unparalleled defense. This move looks good, but it actually doesn't make any sense to me. He frowned and thought. With the protection of ice release chakra mode, Orochimaru's move is useless. But if even the ice release chakra mode was broken, the attacks he would suffer would be unimaginable. Even with the shelling substitute technique, it would only give him a chance to breathe a little longer, or even no chance to breathe. Perhaps I can improve on this technique and create a move that is more suitable for me. He had a vague idea in his mind. However, this was not the time to study it. His first priority was to study the changes in yang release and apply it to the treatment of Ming's injuries. Then, like a dry sponge, Qishuang desperately absorbed moisture from the information sent by Orochimaru. With the research data of this madman Orochimaru as a basis, his research and mastery of yang release increased day by day, just like riding a rocket, and his improvement speed was incredible. Whenever he thought of this, Qishuang couldn't help but regret that he asked Orochimaru for help too late. Earlier, he wasted nearly a year studying alone, but it was not as good as the harvest of a month after getting these materials. Seeing that he had mastered yang release to a certain extent, Qishuang began the next step of work. After consulting numerous medical ninjas and reviewing numerous human anthropology materials, he began to use Yangdun to treat injuries. Then, he found a piece of dried meat and gathered chakra in the palms of his hands. After the nature of Yangdun changed, he injected Yangdun chakra into the dried meat on the test bench. The healing ability of Yangdun chakra is very similar to that of ordinary medical ninjutsu, but there is a fundamental difference. Yangdun chakra controls the power of life and can bring the dead back to life and turn decay into magic, but medical ninjutsu cannot. The principle of medical ninjutsu is to use chakra to stimulate cell proliferation and division, so as to achieve the effect of healing. But if the target cells are already dead, medical ninjutsu can do nothing. Dead cells have lost the possibility of division and proliferation, but Yangdun can. The power of Yangdun is to control life. It can give new life to dead cells, allowing them to regain vitality and gain the ability to proliferate and divide. This is the case with the dried meat on the Nana Frost test bench. All cells have long been dead, and ordinary medical ninjutsu cannot make them divide and proliferate. However, after Qishuang injected Yangdun chakra, the originally shrunken and stiff meat began to become soft, and even the muddy yellow color of the meat gradually changed. A minute later, the dried meat on the test bench had turned into a piece of fresh meat with a ruddy color. If Qishuang had not done it himself, he would have thought that it was the fresh meat he had just bought from the market. After stopping the injection of Yangdun chakra, Qishuang took out a kunai from his pocket and cut it at the meat. The cut immediately revealed the bright red meat. A group of medical ninjas who were also doing experiments nearby were stunned. Suddenly, another fat medical ninja came in. He looked at the piece of fresh meat in front of Qishuang and said in surprise, "When did you bring such a large piece of fresh pork?" As a medical ninja, he has been dealing with flesh and blood for many years. He recognized at a glance that it was a piece of fresh pork. Hearing this, the other medical ninjas in the laboratory immediately looked at him like an idiot. "Why are you looking at me like that?" The fat medical ninja scratched his head, not knowing why. The experiment was a complete success. Qishuang walked down the laboratory table with a smile on his face, patted the man on the shoulder and said, "I'll give you that piece of meat as a snack." After that, he left the laboratory happily. Snack? The fat medical ninja glanced at the piece of meat on the laboratory table and asked the other companions in the laboratory with a little hesitation, "Did the sir do any experiment on that piece of meat?" Adhering to the principle of not wasting, the meat materials in the laboratory will be cooked and eaten as long as they are harmless after use. Of course, human meat is an exception. Perhaps they all wanted to use him for experiments, and the other medical ninjas all shook their heads expressionlessly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614 Yang Done. You are not fooling me, are you? The fat medical ninja did not hide his suspicion. Because everyone has the habit of taking the experimental meat away, sometimes they add ingredients to the meat to play tricks on each other. He has been fooled several times. Absolutely not. If you are worried, you can check it yourself. Someone patted his chest and guaranteed. Really? The fat medical ninja still didn't believe it. Last time, they also made such a guarantee to deceive his trust, and cooked and ate the experimental meat without any inspection. As a result, he was poisoned and lay in the hospital for a week. For safety reasons, he decided to check it himself. If there is really no problem, he will take it back and cook it. It is not a waste of the adult's intention. Then, under the curious eyes of many medical ninjas, he came to the test bench and personally checked the experimental meat. However, as the inspection deepened, he gradually frowned. Why is this piece of pork so strange? He muttered to himself. The skin of the meat was very old, slightly yellowed, and a little hard, a bit like jerky, but the meat under the skin was very tender, like fresh pork just slaughtered today. It was so weird. Hey, what kind of meat is this? He raised his head and asked his companions seriously. It's just pork. Or what else could it be? One of them laughed mischievously. You bunch of liars, this is definitely not pork. The fat medical ninja was anxious and objected loudly. Then what kind of meat do you say it is? The man asked with a smile. This, I can't tell. The fat medical ninja blushed. In the laboratory, a female medical ninja saw it and said impatiently, don't worry. That adult didn't poison that piece of meat, and we didn't do anything. That adult used it to practice ninjutsu. Hearing this, the fat medical ninja breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't detect the toxicity and couldn't figure out the purpose of this piece of meat, so he didn't dare to cook it at all. But since it was a leftover from the adult's ninjutsu practice, there shouldn't be any problem. Especially now, with such a strange piece of meat, he couldn't wait to taste it. Then, he brought the meat to a barbecue restaurant. However, the group of colleagues in the laboratory also followed. At this time, no matter how naive he was, he knew that there must be something wrong with the meat. They were using him as an experimental subject. But so many people followed him to see what was going on, which made him more interested in the strange piece of meat. Helplessly, he had to bite the bullet and ask the barbecue restaurant owner to help cook it. Do you want to try it first? After the meat was grilled, he picked up a piece and gave it to many colleagues. No, we are not hungry, you eat first. Many medical ninjas waved their hands. The barbecue restaurant was filled with the aroma of meat. They were already hungry, but they still had to pretend to be full. The fat medical ninja looked down upon them and said, a bunch of cowards. Then, he proudly put the barbecue on his chopsticks into his mouth. Everyone was embarrassed, but they had nothing to say. Suddenly, the fat medical ninja seemed to remember something, stopped and told everyone, I'll tell you first, if anything happens, you must save me quickly. Hearing this, everyone patted their chests and promised. Don't worry, there are so many of us here, we won't ignore you. Yes, just try it. Then I really ate it. Under the curious and nervous eyes of everyone, the fat medical ninja trembled slightly and put the somewhat cold barbecue into his mouth. Come on, tell me, what does it taste like? Before he swallowed it, many medical ninjas couldn't wait to ask. The fat medical ninja chewed and frowned, saying, the skin is a bit hard. The meat under the skin is relatively delicious. After that, he swallowed the meat in his mouth. As for the rest of the meat on the grill, he did not try it again. He waited and saw if there were any other changes. In case of trouble, it would not be too painful to eat less. That's all. Everyone was unconvinced. Except that the skin is a little old and hard. It is no different from ordinary pork. The fat medical ninja concluded. Everyone looked at each other. This was not the answer they wanted. After observing for nearly half an hour, seeing that there was nothing unusual about the fat medical ninja, everyone was finally convinced that the piece of meat that had been transformed by the adult's ninjutsu was indeed no different from ordinary fresh meat. Then, everyone picked up chopsticks and tried it themselves. How can a piece of dried meat become fresh meat? This is incredible. After tasting it, one person frowned and said, "What? Jerky?" The fat medical ninja jumped up when he heard the news. A female medical ninja next to him rolled her eyes and said, "Yes, it's jerky. We saw with our own eyes that after that gentleman cast a spell on the dried meat, it slowly turned into what you saw later. This is too amazing. It directly gave the dead meat a new lease of life. That gentleman is really hard to guess." The fat medical ninja was full of emotion. Liveliness. Hearing this, a flash of inspiration flashed through the female medical ninja's mind, and she said excitedly, I understand. That gentleman used Yangdun. Only Yangdun can give life to dead things again. As medical ninjas, they have all heard of the power of Yangdun that can bring the dead back to life. It is the ultimate power in the medical field. No matter what kind of injury, it can be cured by Yangdun, which is much more powerful than medical ninjutsu. Unfortunately, Yangdun is extremely difficult to get started, and to apply it in the medical field, it requires extremely high attainments. Therefore, in the entire ninja world, there are only a handful of medical ninjas who can use Yangdun. Everyone was equally excited when they heard about Yangdun. However, the excitement lasted only a second, and everyone could not help but sigh. It's a pity that as a combat ninja, the master has no knowledge of medicine and pharmacology. This Yang escape appears on him. It's really, alas. Everyone sighed and bowed their heads. It's really a waste of natural resources. If the power of Yang escape is given to them, combined with rich medical theory and pharmacology, they can become one of the most famous medical masters in the ninja world. No, I want to find Lord Mizukage and ask Lord Qishuang to accept me as an apprentice. I want to learn Yang escape transformation. The more I thought about it, the more blocked it was. One person couldn't help, but ran out of the barbecue restaurant. Yes, find Lord Mizukage. Wait for me, I'll go too. Then, a group of medical ninjas ran out in a hurry. The fat medical ninja also wanted to catch up, but he was a step slower, and because he hadn't paid yet, he was detained by the barbecue restaurant owner. After another month of exploration, with the hand seal, to control the power of Yang escape, Qishuang finally completed the medical ninjutsu containing Yang escape transformation. He named it Yangdun Death and Rebirth, which has the ability to heal injuries and even bring the dead back to life. Chapter 615 Recovery. Ming, I have developed a technique that can heal your injuries. Let's try it now. After repeated tests, Nanashi found Terumi Mei. You? Terumi Mei sat behind her desk, looked up at him, and said suspiciously, a medical ninjutsu developed by a combat ninja like you, is it reliable? Don't worry. It's absolutely reliable. Nanashi said confidently, not to mention the injuries on your body. Even if it's a dead person, I can save him. I don't believe it. Terumi Mei shook her head, and although she said she didn't believe it, she still walked out from behind the desk. Then, the two came to the lounge next door. Lie down first. Looking around, Nanashi pointed to a long sofa against the wall and said. Terumi Mei walked over and lay down immediately. Nanashi took a few deep breaths, trying to calm down her somewhat excited mood, and then emptied her mind, concentrating on making hand seals and mobilizing chakra to change the nature of Yang escape. Because it was a new technique, he was not very familiar with it. When he made hand seals and mobilized chakra, he was very careful and slow. Although there were only 36 hand seals, he made them slower than ever before. As the chakra gathered in Nanashi's hands, Terumi Mei, who was lying on the sofa, gradually noticed that there was a strange chakra aura on his hands. It was an extremely rare chakra change. Just as she was distracted by her thoughts, Nanashi stopped making hand seals, turned her palms down, and shone the emerald green glow on her palms. Yang release, death and rebirth under Nanashi's careful control. Yang release chakra turned into countless fine needles and fell down, instantly sinking into Terumi Mei's body and drilling into her meridians. And using life energy, he began to repair the damaged meridians. It's a bit itchy. The damaged meridians regenerated, and Terumi Mei suddenly felt an unbearable itch all over her body, and laughed out loud immediately. Don't move, I'm repairing your meridians. Nana, she said with a stern face, and her forehead was already covered with sweat. The power of Yangdan requires the consumption of one's own life energy and is a power that exchanges one's life for another's. Because life is equivalent, no matter what kind of injury is treated, the caster needs to consume an equal amount of life energy. For Qishuang now, even if he is asked to revive the dead, it is not a problem, but the price is unbearable for him. Therefore, in order to reduce his own consumption, he tried his best to control every bit of his strength so that it can act on Ming's meridians and avoid wasting it outside the meridians. Seeing that his face was getting paler and paler, Terumi Mei also understood the seriousness of the matter, gritted his teeth, endured the strange itch all over his body, and did not say a word. The treatment process lasted for about 10 minutes, and it felt almost done, so Qishuang stopped the technique and fell headfirst on the sofa. "How are you? Are you okay?" Terumi Mei hurriedly got up and asked anxiously. "I'm fine, just a little weak." Qishuang waved his hand weakly. "Weakness? I'm afraid it's not weakness. What forbidden technique did you use?" Looking at his pale face, Terumi Mei didn't believe it at all. "It's nothing. I just used Yangtan, which consumed some life energy. It will recover in a few days." Qishuang turned over and said nonchalantly, "Life energy is not like chakra, and it cannot be restored by meditation. It can only be restored slowly. Although the energy consumed in treating Ming's injuries is not particularly large, it will take several days to fully recover. Now he is no different from a serious illness." Yangtan? Terumi suddenly realized. Of course she knew what Yangtan meant. Then she sighed and said, "A few days ago, some people in the medical department applied to learn Yangdan from you. I thought they were joking. So, you really mastered it. Why don't you teach them and let them learn Yangdan to enhance the medical department's treatment capabilities?" Qishuang waved her hands and said, "Yangdan is not that easy to learn. It took me nearly a year to master it. It's a big question whether they can get started. What's more, you also understand that anything involving yin and Yangdan is a top-notch forbidden technique. If you are not careful, it will cause big trouble. How can you teach it to them casually?" No. He firmly opposed making the information on Yangdan available to the public. But Yangdan is of great significance to the medical field. It's a waste for you to keep it to yourself. Terumi shook her head and suggested, "How about this? You take out some superficial information and then put it in the technique library and set it to the highest authority for reading. If the reader is really talented, then he can definitely continue to explore. If the reader is not talented, there is no need to worry about the information leaking out. It can not only screen out most of the unqualified people, but also give others a chance. Isn't this okay?" Looking at her expectant eyes, Qishuang couldn't bear to refuse after all, so he had to say helplessly, "Okay, I'll give it to you. But I've said, I will only give you some simple introductory information. Okay, it's settled." Terumi nodded, then looked at her hands again, and said happily, "I feel that my injuries are all healed, and now I can use Eclipse again." "Don't," Qishuang hurriedly reminded, "although I have cured your injuries, you cannot completely control the power of Eclipse. If it's just a simple daily change practice, then there's no problem, but if you use a lot of Eclipse chakra to perform the spell, it will turn into the same situation as last time. When that happens, you will suffer, and I will be unlucky too. It's better for you not to use Eclipse, unless it's absolutely necessary." After hearing this, Terumi curled her lips and said helplessly, "Okay, I'll just do simple adaptation exercises." After treating Meda's injuries, Qishuang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Back home, he turned out all his Yangtan materials, selected a relatively simple part, and copied it to another blank scroll, ready to send it to the spell library. Then, he set his eyes on the thick pile of Yangtan materials. Now, it's time to solve my own problems. The power of Yangtan is unquestionable, and it would be a waste if such a powerful force was only used to treat injuries. Converting such a powerful force into his own combat power would not be in vain for his efforts over the past year. His first task is to prepare to merge the Ice Release Chakra mode with the Sage mode, or to transform the Ice Release Chakra mode into a fairy art. The two modes have not yet been combined, and cannot be used at the same time, which leads to his attack being more than enough but his defense being slightly insufficient after he enters the sage state. This leaves him with a huge hidden danger. The practice you want is here. Actually, I don't like to write about the practice process. I prefer to explain the principle of practice so that everyone can understand how this skill came about. It's really meaningless to move chakra like moving key in fairy tales. I'm too lazy to write about this kind of practice. I will focus on explaining the origin of the skill, as well as the basis and principle of the birth of the skill. Let the appearance of the skill have a certain logic, instead of letting the protagonist imagine the skill out of thin air, and then practice without any basis, and mindlessly for countless days and nights, and suddenly practice a skill that he imagined. Chapter 616 Reconciliation. Qishuang thought silently. Sage mode uses natural energy to strengthen the basic qualities of the body, thereby achieving the effect of enhancing defense. And ice release chakra mode uses chakra to cover the body surface, thereby achieving the purpose of enhancing defense. Once the two are integrated, my whole body's defense will be improved to an unimaginable level. By then, I'm afraid even the complete Susanoo will not be stronger than me. The Uchiha family's Susanoo has roughly 3 forms from low to high. The first is the initial skeletal form, whose defense has already exceeded most defensive techniques. The second is the half-human form, that seems to have grown flesh and blood in the middle stage. At this time, Susanoo has few enemies. Finally, and also the strongest complete form, Susanoo grows a lower body, and becomes a complete armed giant form. The defense and attack power of Susanoo in this form completely reach the peak. I still remember the story in my previous life, when the two children fought in the final battle. Their Sage Fox mode and the complete Susanoo were evenly matched. The move Chakra mode originated from the Jinkriki's tailed beast form. Judging from the record of the 3rd and 4th Raikage's melee fights with the 8 tails, the defensive power of Chakra mode is at least the same level as the perfect tailed beast. Nanish's ice release is even better at defense. His ice release chakra mode is slightly stronger than the perfect tailed beast in terms of defense. The so-called Sage Fox mode is actually the product of the fusion of the Ninetales mode in the perfect tailed beast form and the Sage mode. The Ninetales mode in the perfect tailed beast form is equivalent to the Ninetales true form. Similarly, if Nanashi fuses ice release chakra mode with Sage mode, he will naturally gain the power to rival Sage Fox mode and the perfect Susanoo. Sage mode absorbs power from the outside to strengthen the body, while chakra mode releases energy from the body to protect the body. The two have conflicts in their running paths, so it is difficult for them to merge. Looking at his palm, Nanashi thought silently. This is the conclusion he came to after many failed fusions. Then, Qishuang turned his palm over again, facing down, and said to himself, although their chakra paths conflict, they all have a common intersection, which is my body. If I use a yang escape that controls the changes in life to mediate, I can change the path of one of the chakras and synchronize the two chakra paths. I think I should be able to complete the fusion of the two powers. If he wanted to run 2 different chakra paths in parallel, he thought he still didn't have the ability. Because chakra runs on the meridians of the human body, and there is only one set of meridians, not a second set. Forcing 2 different directions of chakra to run in the meridians at the same time is dangerous. At the least, the meridians will be damaged and become disabled. At the worst, the running conflicts will cause the body to explode and die. That is to say, now that he has mastered the power of yang escape and can change his own body shape, he has the possibility of trying to reverse the chakra path. In the past, he didn't even dare to think about it. Natural energy comes from the outside world and is not easy to control. It is probably very difficult to change its operation. I'd better change the operation path of the chakra mode as my goal. After thinking for a while, Qishuang made a decision. Then, he began the difficult journey of using yang escape to harmonize and change the operation path of ice escape chakra mode. In the outside world, the news of the bumper harvest of the trial planting of yuan rice in the Hidden Mist village has spread widely. It is incredible that you can get the harvest of the previous full investment with only half the effort. Everyone is looking forward to getting such rice seeds. Countless merchants and farmers came to the Hidden Mist village from afar just to buy rice seeds for the next season. Even many people moved their families directly into the Hidden Mist village. Of course, those are residents from other parts of the water country. Only they are qualified to move into the hidden mist village. Many people came to buy rice seeds, and even representatives from the other 4 villages came. Although they are among the 5 largest villages, unlike the other small villages and small states, there will be trouble such as famine, but no one will complain that they have too much food. They would not miss this excellent rice seed. Unfortunately, Qishuang had already issued an order prohibiting the sale of new rice seeds to people outside the Land of Water. Many outsiders were disappointed. However, the ninja villages were not easy to deal with. They would not miss such a good thing and return empty-handed. They did not dare to rob. After all, it was a peaceful time now. If they made trouble on the territory of the Land of Water, it would be a big problem. Stealing was the best way. This method could also achieve the goal, and the nature was not so bad. Even if the matter was exposed, it would not tear the face with the hidden mist village. What's more, stealing rice seeds from a group of ordinary people was just a piece of cake for ninjas. Soon, after the operation of ninjas from various villages, each ninja village also stole a lot of rice seeds. Not only that, in addition to the new rice seeds, the technology of cultivating new rice seeds has also become the target of coveted by various villages. Spies from various villages began to frequently spy on the intelligence of the Hidden Mist Agricultural Department, and the Hidden Mist Anbu also caught many spies. Unfortunately, with countless spies like moths to a flame, the Kirigakure Anbu always missed a few. Soon, except for the core theory of crossbreeding in the Ministry of Agriculture, everything in the Ministry of Agriculture was clearly known by the other 4 villages. Perhaps because the basic theoretical knowledge of this world is weak, when the 4 major ninja villages saw the intelligence of the catalyst, they arrogantly believed that the catalyst was the basis for cultivating new rice varieties. All of them followed the devil and began to desperately analyze the principle of the catalyst. The first to come up with the answer was Konoha village. Because the first generation of Hokage became famous for wood release, Konoha village has always been obsessed with it. After some analysis, they immediately determined that the truth of the Kirigakure catalyst was wood release. Danzo, I remember that you have a child who can use wood release. The 3rd generation Hokage said to another bandaged old man, while holding a pipe in his mouth. Danzo responded, frowning and saying, 3rd generation, you are not going to follow the example of Kirigakure and set up an agricultural department, are you? They have known each other for decades, and they can guess each other's thoughts with just a few words. The 3rd generation took a puff of cigarette and said slowly, why not? You have also seen the actual benefits brought by Kirigakure's agricultural department. It will only benefit us, not harm us. Besides, we also have wood release, and we have the capital to set up an agricultural department. Danzo did not speak, and he was a little bit difficult to make a decision. The child who could use wood release was his capable subordinate, and he was a little reluctant to let him go. But the benefits brought by the agricultural department were indeed visible, and it could enhance the foundation of Konoha village, so he could not find a reason to refuse. At this time, another old woman in the office said, Danzo, the kid under you is just a defective product. There is no point in keeping him. It would be better to let the 3rd generation take him to set up the Ministry of Agriculture. I think he is suitable for the job of promoting the growth of crops. Another old man wearing glasses next to him agreed, yeah, I think it's okay. Seeing that it was 3-1, knowing that it was useless to object, Shimura Danzo turned around and left helplessly, leaning on his cane. You guys can do it. Chapter 617 New Card. Konoha village found the key to cultivating new rice varieties in Kirigakure, and began to set up its own agricultural department. Iwagakure, Senagakure, and Kumogakure were in trouble. After analyzing for a long time, they finally figured out that the catalyst was actually wood release. However, wood release had long been extinct in the ninja world, so where could they get it? Then, they turned their attention to Kirigakure. Unlike Konoha where the first Hokage was, Kirigakure village, like them, was a village that had never had wood release Kekkei Genkei. If the catalyst with the power of wood release appeared in Konoha, they could still understand it, but it was a bit intriguing that it appeared in Kirigakure village, which had never had wood release. Then, the 3 major ninja villages began the difficult process of investigating the source of Kirigakure's catalyst. They firmly believed that they might be able to find something from it, and then let them also gain the power of wood release. On the other hand, relying on the coordination of the power of yang release, Nana Frost successfully completed the reverse operation of ice release chakra mode more than a month later. At this point, the ice release chakra mode and the sage mode have achieved a true fusion. These two powers, one inside and one outside, once driven at the same time. Qishuang's entire body is like a miniature complete Susanoo. Except for the difference in size, the attack and defense are not inferior to Susanoo at all, and even better. More importantly, Qishuang's body is far smaller than Susanoo, so when fighting, it is naturally more flexible than Susanoo. And this flexibility will also become the key for Qishuang to crush Susanoo. You know, Susanoo looks huge and terrifying. Every move has the power to collapse mountains, and charging into battle is even more devastating, and no one can resist it. But there is always another side to everything, and the huge body will also become a burden to Susanoo. Although Susanoo is the innate ability of the main Jiki Sharingan, it is not the body of the caster after all, and cannot move as flexibly as a normal person. The size of an ordinary person is not even as big as one of its fingers, so it has almost no chance of dodging the attack of a normal person, and can only rely on its own strong defense to bear it. Only when facing the attack of a tailed beast of the same size, the flexibility of the giant Susanoo is comparable to that of the tailed beast, which will give it room to dodge. Perhaps, because of the powerful attack and defense capabilities of Susanoo, its huge size will have a crushing effect on ordinary people. But the times have changed since the arrival of Nanashi. In the history of the ninja world, there were not many forces that could match Susanoo, which led to the development of Susanoo from the initial skeletal form to the armed giant. This is just like the development of weapons in the history of war in his previous life, from the giant warships and cannons at the beginning to the increasingly refined transformation later. The reason why the giant warships and cannons can dominate for a while is that more refined weapons have not been born later. So people think that the bigger the ship, the better, and the more cannons, the better. Little do they know that they have entered a dead end. Facing ordinary fleets, giant warships and cannons will show overwhelming combat power, but in the face of more powerful and compact weapons, their lack of flexibility was exposed. And this drawback is also the key to their complete exit from history. The bloody lessons of history told Qishuang that these experiences would never be wrong. Under the same mass, the huge Susanoo could never be his opponent. The invincible Susanoo should exit history. After completing the fusion of the two modes, Qishuang started to study the next technique without stopping. Looking at the scroll spread out on the desk, Qishuang said to himself, that guy's shelling substitute is a very powerful life-saving trick, but it's a pity that I can't use it. Before the two modes were fused, this technique was of little use to him. Now, he has mastered the power of Yang Dun and created Death Resurrection. As long as he doesn't die completely, he will never die. Moreover, the power of the two modes is fused, and there is no possibility of injury. Orochimaru's shelling substitute technique is even less useful to him. If I use Yang Dun to transform it into another technique that multiplies my combat power, then the meaning will be completely different. Qishuang picked up the pen and wrote 4 big words on the blank space of the scroll. 8 gates of Dungia. Whether in this life or in the story of the previous life, the power of the 8 gates of Dungia is extraordinary. In this life, Konoha's might guy almost wiped out the 7 ninja swordsmen with this, and in the story of the previous life, Konoha's might guy almost kicked the man who brought the end of the world. It can be said that the power of the 8 gates of Dungia left a very deep impression on Qishuang's heart. According to his understanding, the 8 gates of Dungia is a trick that opens the 8 hidden acupuncture points of the human body, unleashes the innate constraints of the human body, and thus explodes potential and exerts overload power. In essence, the 8 gates of Dungia should actually be an auxiliary technique to enhance combat power, not an attacking technique. With this as inspiration, Qishuang decided to transform Orochimaru's shelling substitute technique into an auxiliary technique to enhance combat power, a trick that follows the momentary beauty. It is also a preparation for the future crusade against the Akatsuki organization. Now, although the Hidden Mist village has been on the right track and is peaceful, the Akatsuki organization is still eyeing it. Qishuang knows their purpose, and of course he will not wait foolishly until they gather all the tailed beasts before taking action. He wants to take the initiative and nip the danger in the bud. Although Qishuang has the confidence to face any enemy after integrating the power of the two modes, it is not a bad thing to prepare for a rainy day. Inspired by the 8 gates of Dungia, he plans to transform the shelling substitute technique into a life-threatening auxiliary trick. Of course, he is not going to make a fuss about the 8 gates hidden in the human body. He doesn't have the courage. The 8 gates of the human body are very special. Without special professional guidance, it would be extremely dangerous to try rashly. Moreover, he doesn't know much about the 8 gates themselves, so he naturally won't try it casually. Even if he had a life-saving move like Death Resurrection, he was unwilling to try it. What's more, although the 8 gates of Dungia can obtain explosive improvement in a short period of time by consuming potential, it has a huge defect of time limit. It is a power obtained by overdrawing human potential. After all, human potential is limited, and the 8 gates cannot be opened for a long time. Especially the final 8th gate. Once opened, it will enter the countdown to death. The time limit defect of the 8 gates can be seen. Although it is normal for the 8 gates to have a time limit as a life-threatening technique, Qishuang feels that the time limit of the 8 gates is still too short. It is not suitable for ninjas like him who are not good at explosive attacks. What he needs is an auxiliary technique with sufficient time limit, suitable for ninjas like him who are good at protracted battles. Therefore, he plans to rely on his advantage in mastering the changes of Yangdun to develop and create on the basis of Orochimaru's shelling substitute technique. If you don't know the history of modern weapon changes and the reason why the giant ship cannon disappeared, you can do it. I remember watching a documentary on CCTV about the demise of big ships and big guns. Japan built the strongest and largest big ships at that time, but it still withdrew from history. The simplest example is that Susanoo is so huge that the wind resistance is also very large when it is moving. It doesn't look obvious between people of the same size, but compared with people of normal size, the difference is very huge. It's just that, because the opponent is too weak, it is difficult to resist the big and strong attack of Susanoo, so the defect of Susanoo's lack of flexibility is not so obvious. For example, in the battle between Danzo and Nahashi, Danzo easily went behind Susanoo, and Nahashi found it but couldn't adjust. The flexibility is really not enough. Chapter 618 Enlightenment. Time passed quickly, and another year passed in the blink of an eye. The ninja school has already produced 2 new generations of Kirigakure genin. Because Nanashimo proposed a school reform, the ninja school has sent a lot of fresh blood to the medical department. Although those newly graduated genin are still very immature and only know some simple medical theories and pharmacology, with these basics, under the personal demonstration of many seniors in the medical department, those children learn very quickly. The embarrassing situation of the medical department being short of manpower has finally been improved. The entire medical system of Kirigakure has finally been completely repaired. The agricultural department is a little more troublesome, because it was not taken seriously at the beginning, and only a few genin entered in the first year. However, this situation changed in the second year after the whole village replaced the new rice seeds, and dozens of genin poured into this emerging department. Under the guidance of many old farmers, they also began to improve breeding. Even because they can use chakra themselves, they are more efficient than those old farmers. It's just that their farming experience is slightly insufficient. I believe that under the guidance of those old farmers, they will gradually grow into the pillars of the Ministry of Agriculture and further promote the development of Kirigakure agriculture. In addition to non-combat ninjas, there are more genin coming out of the school, about 2,000 people, which greatly fills the shortage of Kirigakure after the civil strife. So far, the total number of Kirigakure ninjas has recovered to about 8,000. In the past 2 years, countless genin have been promoted to chunin, and chunin have been promoted to jonin, and Kirigakure has recovered a lot of vitality. Although it is still not as good as before the civil strife, it has finally recovered. In the surrounding area, the scattered ninja forces that were originally ready to move have completely calmed down and dared not to have any other intentions. The border of the water country has completely stabilized. Not only that, Qishuang also completed the transformation of the shelling substitute technique in this year, turning it into his unique technique. The technique is very effective, but if it is fully performed, it requires a huge price, and even he dare not try it easily. Every time he experiments, he can only narrow the scope of the experiment as much as possible and only perform a part. Even though he was so careful, Nanashi still paid an irreversible price for it. There were many more silver strands in his originally black hair. Whenever Meitarumi asked him about this, he didn't dare to answer, and could only perfunctorily use his physical condition to get by. Just as he had expected earlier, that ninjutsu became his last trump card, a card that could not be easily revealed. Because he could only use the complete technique once. In the fountain square, a girl with brown red hair pointed at the center of the fountain, and asked her companion with glasses, "Hey, Chijiro. Tell me, why did Lord Ninashiro lock that criminal in the pool, and not execute him for so many years?" Chijiro glanced at the girl cautiously and replied weakly, this. Forget it, I'd better go and ask the person involved in person. Seeing that he couldn't say a word for a long time, the girl became a little impatient, and disappeared in an instant. Hey, before Chijiro could stop her, he saw the girl's figure fall into the pool, and stand steadily on the water. The mist ninjas who were responsible for guarding the surroundings did not show up to stop her. As long as she did not do anything, and just took a closer look, it would not be a big deal. Because the adult had already explained, when he put a Shigeki Kisame in the pool, there was no need to stop others from approaching. Hey, shark-faced guy. The girl stood on the water, and shouted at the shark head on the water. Shigeki Kisame, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes immediately when he heard the voice. "Where are you from, little devil? How dare you disturb my sleep?" Kisame grinned and said with a fake smile, "Don't worry about who I am, just answer my questions well." The girl said with a stern face and unceremoniously. She had no respect and pity for the prisoners. "Oh, what do you want to ask?" Shigeki Kisame asked with a smile. It was rare for someone to come and talk to him, and he felt an indescribable joy in his heart. Moreover, this was a little girl who looked very interesting. He didn't mind answering a few questions from the other party. Before the girl could speak, Chijiro came over. He looked around and said, "Amayuri, let's leave here as soon as possible. Kisame Shigeki is a prisoner. We should not have too much contact with him, right?" He was a little worried that he would be arrested by the village as a dangerous person because of contact with Kisame Shigeki. Amayuri waved her hand with a little disdain and said impatiently, "If you are afraid, then go away. Salmon and Ashiro locked him here, but he didn't mean to stop us from getting close to him. What's there to be afraid of?" Chijiro was her classmate, and one of the candidates chosen by Mizukage to inherit the ninja sword. But this guy always looked back and forth when doing things, and looked timid, which was really not commendable. "But, don't say, but, you should stand outside the pool, and don't disturb me." Chijiro was interrupted by Amayuri before he could finish his words. Helplessly, he had to retreat to the edge of the pool in disgrace. Shigeki Kisame did not interrupt. He watched with great interest as the courageous girl drove away her companions. "Hey, you have been locked here for so long. Why didn't Ninashimo-sama kill you?" Without Chijiro's interruption, Yuri asked curiously. Ha. Shigeki Kisame was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter and said, "You are such an interesting girl. If it were me 2 years ago, I would never answer your question. But now, I can tell you. What is it?" Yuri hurriedly urged. Kisame looked at the misty sky and sighed. "He wants to give me a chance to change. More than 2 years is enough time for him to see everything clearly and think everything through." At this moment, another male voice appeared on the pool. "Since you have thought it through, let's continue the unfinished judgment." The two turned around when they heard the voice, but saw a young man in white clothes walking up to the pool. "Master Nanashi, why are you here?" Seeing the newcomer, Yuli, who was originally fearless, suddenly became nervous. She had never expected to meet this person here. As for Chijiro, who was lying next to the pool, he was completely dumbfounded. What he feared was really what he got. This is bad. Yuli will probably be punished by the master. He couldn't help but worry. In the pool, Nanashi ignored the nervous girl. He stared at Ashigaki Kisame and asked, "Tell me your answer. How can the ideal future be realized?" Looking around the streets, Ashigaki Kisame said with emotion, "Keep your feet on the ground, take one step at a time, and slowly walk from the starting point to the end point. This is the correct way to realize your ideal. Maybe, we will never reach the end point in a lifetime, but we can get infinitely close to it, getting closer and closer to it." This is his understanding over the past 2 years. Seeing the 7 people who were reincarnated by Kabuto, many people mistakenly believed that Yuyuli was of the same generation as the Fugu demon, but this was actually wrong. For example, Zabuza was the 2nd generation of the beheading sword holder at that time, and he was not of the same generation as Fuguki. Before him, Biwajusa was the 1st generation. When the 7 ninja swordsmen fought against Might Day, it was Kirigakure who wielded the Thunder Sword. Therefore, Ringo Ayuri was either his predecessor or his successor. It was impossible for him to be of the same generation as Zigwish and Fuguki and the others. Here, I set Ayuri as a successor of Kirigakure. By the way, farming is officially over. Chapter 619 Apple. In the past 2 years, Kisame Ashigaki was locked in this pool and witnessed how the post-war Kirigakure changed from a ruin to a shed, and then from the shed to a simple hut. Finally, it changed from a simple hut to the bustling street today. There are more and more people, and the streets are getting more and more lively. More importantly, the Kirigakure has changed its new system, which is less murderous and more peaceful than the Kirigakure before the war. Everything is changing towards a better future. It is more and more like the world he expected, where everyone trusts each other. So far, he finally understood that the direction of the future depends entirely on personal decisions. Going with the flow will not help. If you want a different future, you need to work hard and create it bit by bit, instead of expecting to reach the sky in one step and achieve your wish. That is unrealistic. Uchiha Obito's attempt to create the world with illusion is ultimately just deceiving himself. Fake can never replace the real. The dream will eventually wake up one day. Very good, you can understand, that's great. Qishuang nodded, and then said, "Darkness and light coexist. You just happen to be in the darkness and see a dirty corner of it, but that's not the whole world." As he said that, he looked up at the sky and continued, "The world is big, but my heart is small. It can only hold Kirigakure. I don't care what the world is like. As long as I can use my power to change Kirigakure, that's enough." Like Uchiha Obito, trying to change the whole world with personal power, that's just a joke. Hearing this, Ashigaki Kisame suddenly realized, yes, the world is so big, and his power is only so much. How ignorant and ridiculous it is to try to change the world with personal power. Recalling the absurdity of the past, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yuyuli next to him was a little confused when he heard the inexplicable conversation between the two, but he didn't dare to interrupt at will, so he could only stand aside and wait obediently. Qishuang lowered his head, looked at the shark face and said seriously, "Tell me your choice this time. Life or death?" Kisame understood that behind the two choices of life and death, there is actually another hidden meaning. Choosing life means surrender and returning to Kirigakure. Choosing death means resistance and never looking back. If there were no tempering in the past 2 years, perhaps he would still choose death again like 2 years ago, but now he is no longer the same as before. This time, I choose life. He looked directly into the eyes of the young man and replied solemnly, "Very good." Qishuang showed a relieved smile. It would be a pity to kill such a talent with his own hands. Fortunately, the other party did not live up to the tempering he arranged and finally got back on track. "Little Apple, let's go." After calling the girl, Qishuang immediately walked out of the pool. Yuyuli's full name is Ringo Yuyuli, and her surname Ringo actually means apple. Also, Yuyuli likes to eat apples very much, so Nana Shuang and the others gave her the nickname Little Apple. "Wait for me." The girl hurriedly followed. At the pool, seeing Nana Shuang coming out, Chijiro looked nervous and whispered, "Hello, Nana Shuang." "Yes." Nana Shuang responded, and asked the two people while walking, "How is your sword practice going?" "It's okay." Chijiro followed behind and replied timidly. Yuyuli said carelessly, "Sir, we have all officially graduated from school and become genin. When will you distribute the real ninja swords to us?" Practicing with that imitation sword every day is meaningless. The girl pouted, her tone full of complaints. Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and explained helplessly, I'm doing this for your own good. You are too young and inexperienced. It is easy to cause unnecessary trouble if you show off your ninja swordsmanship. So what? Yuli said nonchalantly, if there is one, I will beat one. If there are two, I will beat a pair. If there are a group, I will take care of them all. Seeing her confident look, Qishuang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Earlier, he had always thought that Sujetsu was the strongest of the new generation of Kirigakure, but after seeing Yuli, he completely overturned his conclusion. Yuli has a good talent for swordsmanship, and it can be said that she is unmatched among her peers. What's more rare is that she is also very good at lightning escape and has a high affinity with Thunderblade Fang. Therefore, she was designated as the holder of the next generation of Thunderblade early on. Hazuki Sujetsu relied on the water transformation technique to make many people unable to do anything to him, but after meeting the genius girl Yuli, he really fell into a big fall. His ninjutsu was restrained, and his swordsmanship was not as good as others, and he was simply beaten to a pulp. For the past 2 years, Shuayu has been studying the oil-based secret techniques left by the second generation to the Hazuki family, hoping to completely make up for the defects of the liquefied body like his brother, and regain his place. However, in Nana Shuang's opinion, even if Shuayu has mastered the secret techniques left by the second generation, it is unlikely that he will be a match for Yuli. Then, he curled his lips and said to the girl, "Little apple, there is one thing you may have forgotten." "What is it?" Yuli followed behind, chewing the apple and asked subconsciously. "The Thunderblade is still in the hands of the previous generation of ninja swordsman Kuroki Reiga, and it has not been taken back yet. Even if I promise to give it to you, I can't take it out at all." Nana Shuang smiled very brightly. Yuli stopped and instantly felt that the apple in her hand was not fragrant. Just when she was about to say something, there was a moist feeling in her nose, as if something was flowing out. She wiped it with her hand, and her finger suddenly became a little more bloody. "Yuli, why are you bleeding from your nose?" Chijiro next to her pointed at the girl and screamed. "It's really annoying." Yuli muttered, and then very skillfully took out a few tissues from her pocket to plug her nostrils. At the same time, hearing Chijiro's exclamation, Nana Shuang turned around and saw her skillful movements, frowned slightly and said, "Have you gone to the hospital to see a doctor?" This is the third time he has seen Xiaopingo bleed from the nose this month. "No need." Yuli waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "It's just a little nosebleed. It's no big deal. Maybe it's because the weather in our Kirigakure is too humid and hot. The weather is humid and hot, and the human body is full of fire, so it is normal to have nosebleeds." Nana Shuang shook her head and said seriously, "Your nosebleeds are a bit too frequent." Even if he doesn't understand medical theory, he clearly understands that frequent nosebleeds are a physical abnormality. What's more, he still remembers that in the story of his previous life, Xiaopingo died young. Although the cause is unknown, the abnormal situation of Xiaopingo's frequent nosebleeds now makes him have a bad premonition. "Come on, let's go to the hospital for a checkup." Then, without further ado, he took the girl to the hospital in a hurry, leaving Chijiro standing there in a daze. Chapter 620 Invitation. "How is Xiaopingo?" Qishuang asked the doctor who had just finished the examination. "My lord, the situation is not very good." The doctor shook his head, his face a little serious. "Just tell me." Qishuang's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. The doctor sighed and said, "We found that the patient has a foreign body in her head, so she has frequent nosebleeds. Can't it be removed surgically or treated with drugs?" Qishuang asked. Listening to the doctor's story, he judged that the foreign body in Yuli's brain should be a tumor. However, this world does not have the concept of tumors, so it is called a foreign body. If it is just an external injury or a physical injury, he can use death resurrection to treat it, but tumors are not in the category of injuries. That is a mutated biological tissue. Death resurrection not only cannot cure Yuli's disease, but will catalyze the growth of tumors and have a counterproductive effect. Only physical removal or pharmacological targeted methods can be used to treat those mutated biological tissues. The doctor shook his head again and sighed. Your Excellency has overestimated us. With the medical level of our Kirigakure, no one can prepare a prescription to treat this kind of foreign body, and no one can have such superb surgical skills to remove the foreign body in the patient's brain. Perhaps only Tsunade of Konoha has this level. Tsunade, one of the 3 legendary ninjas, is a medical ninja with a very high level of medical skills, at the top of the medical level of the entire ninja world. If even she can't do anything, then there is really no hope. After hearing the doctor's words, Nanashiro was a little helpless. Tsunade has not yet overcome her fear of blood, and it may be difficult to perform surgery. What's more troublesome is that the other party is not in Konoha at this time, and even if he wants to find someone to help, he can't find any trace. How long can Zaira Pingo's illness last? Nanashiro asked instead. The doctor thought for a moment and said uncertainly, according to the growth of the foreign body, it is not yet a threat to the patient's life. If its growth rate does not change, the patient will probably have 2 years to live. However, the growth of foreign bodies is unpredictable, and no one knows what changes it will undergo in the future. I suggest that you make plans early, sir. Hearing this, Qishuang breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there is no accident, 2 years should be enough for him to cure Zaira Pingo's tumor. Then you can prescribe some medicine for her to suppress the condition. Qishuang ordered immediately. The doctor shook his head again and smiled bitterly. I think it's better not to do that. We don't know much about the foreign body. If we use drugs rashly, once it stimulates bad changes, it will be too late to regret. I think the patient should maintain a good lifestyle and rest more. Okay then. Since the doctor said so, Qishuang no longer insisted. After all, he was just an outsider. It is always more reliable to listen to the doctor than to do it yourself. Then, Qishuang left the hospital with Yuli who had finished the examination. On the way, the girl asked curiously, "Sir, what did the doctor say?" The two deliberately avoided each other, so she didn't hear anything. Qishuang thought for a while and said slowly, "The doctor said that you are sick and need to maintain good living habits to prevent the condition from getting worse." Zaira Pingo was only 12 or 13 years old, and his mental endurance was limited, so he didn't dare to say too much. "You are lying." The girl took out an apple from her pocket, wiped it on her clothes, and put it to her mouth. There was a crisp sound, and a hole was cut on the red apple, revealing the white flesh underneath. Yuli chewed and said, "If I'm really sick, why didn't they give me any medicine?" Qishuang pretended to be relaxed and said, "That's because Kirigakure doesn't have the kind of medicinal materials that can cure your illness, so they didn't give you medicine for the time being." "Oh, is that so?" The girl believed it, and continued to chew the red apple in her hand without any doubt. Qishuang continued, "After some time, I will find the herbs that can cure your illness and let them cure you. Now, just stay in the village, and don't go anywhere. Just eat well and sleep well." "You can't go anywhere?" Yuli rolled her eyes and said happily, "Does that mean I don't have to go out of the village to carry out missions?" "Well, even if that's the case, I'll talk to Lord Mizukage later and ask for a sick leave for you." Qishuang thought for a while and said, "Yeah, no need to carry out missions." Yuli shouted excitedly. After all, she is still a child. She prefers the latter to carry out missions and play on holidays. After another patient instruction, Qishuang and the girl parted at the intersection, and then he came to the Mizukage building. "Lord Mizukage, I'm asking for a sick leave for Zaira Pingo. Don't let her go on missions for the time being." As soon as he entered the door, Qishuang said to Terumi Mei behind the desk, "Yuli is sick. Wasn't she fine yesterday?" Terumi Mei was a little surprised. Ringo Yuri is the successor to the next ninja swordsman, and is also the most talented new generation in the village, so she is always in her attention. Nanashi waved her hands and said, "I met her in the central square today. I saw that she was not in a good condition, so I took her to the hospital for a checkup." "What did the doctor say?" Terumi Mei asked hurriedly. "Zaira Pingo is still very young, and has a long way to go in life. She also represents the future of Kirigakure. If anything happens to her, Kirigakure will suffer a great loss." After signaling the others in the office to leave, Nanashi said seriously, "The doctor said that Zaira Pingo has a foreign body in her head, and she only has about 2 years left. Can't they cure it?" Terumi Mei frowned. her tone a little unhappy. Nanashi shook her head and said, they said that Kirigakure's medical level is not good enough, and they suggest going to Konoha to seek Tsunade Heim. But Tsunade has long been gone from Konoha, and it's useless to take Yuri to Konoha. Terumi Mei said worriedly. It is no secret that the 3 ninjas of Konoha left the village. The whole ninja world knows about it. So, I plan to let Yuri stay in Kirigakure to recuperate, and then ask Orochimaru to help me find Tsunade. Nanashi said seriously. You actually have contact with Orochimaru? Terumi Mei was a little surprised. She had never heard him mention this. We both have the spiritual contract of Ryochi Cave, and it is not difficult to contact each other through this medium. Nanashi shrugged and said. Then, he pointed to the half-broken envelope pressed by the documents on the desk and asked, by the way, what is this? In a pile of documents, there was such a big difference in size envelope that was somewhat conspicuous, so he noticed it at a glance. Terumi Mei took the opportunity to look at it and suddenly said, oh, you are talking about this? That is the invitation letter sent by the 3rd generation Hokage of Konoha, inviting our Kirigakure to participate in this year's Chunin exam. Well, it is connected with the plot of Shippuden. La la la. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621 Persuasion. Nanashiro pinched a corner of the envelope and pulled it out from the pile of documents. While browsing through it, she asked, what are you going to do? Terumi Mei said unhappily, what else can I do? Of course I refuse. You don't know the situation in the village. How can I have the mind to participate in their Chunin exam? Although the Kirigakure has recovered from the civil strife, it is still very weak. The so-called Chunin exam in Konoha is actually a platform for various forces to show off their military power and observe the growth of the next generation of various forces. The result of participating in the Chunin exam in Kirigakure's current situation is self-evident. She doesn't want to be laughed at by the other 4Kage. After reading the letter, Nanashiro smiled and said, actually, I think we should participate in this event. Why? Terumi Mei looked at him curiously and asked. There are 2 main reasons. Nanashi raised a finger and explained slowly. First, the situation in Kirigakure is probably not hidden from the other 4 villages. If we don't go, they will think we are guilty. At this time, we should not show weakness to the enemy, but should show enough muscle to make them feel hesitant and not underestimate us and cause unnecessary trouble. A wounded shark can also bite people to death. Terumi Mei nodded after hearing this. There is nothing wrong with thinking this way. Showing too much weakness may have the opposite effect. Raising the second finger, Nanashi continued. Second, I want to take this opportunity to face the other 4Kage and persuade them to attack the Akatsuki organization. Hearing this, Terumi Mei was surprised and said, are you kidding? To deal with an Akatsuki organization, you actually need to contact the other 4Kage. Contacting the 4Kage means gathering the power of the 5 major ninja villages. And gathering the 5 major ninja villages is equivalent to gathering nearly 70% of the ninja power in the entire ninja world. Such a lineup is unprecedented. Qishuang shook her head helplessly and said, have you forgotten what I told you? That Akatsuki has nearly 100,000 humanoid soldiers? Those humanoid soldiers are all as good as genin. With such a large number, who can deal with it, unless the 5 major ninja villages gather their forces? In the heyday of Kirigakure, all Kirigakure ninjas added up to no more than 20,000 people. Even the most powerful Konoha village was estimated to have only about 30,000. Any ninja village alone against these 100,000 white Zetsu would be annihilated. The only difference is that the white Zetsu side suffered different losses. But, Kirigakure has just recovered and started the war again. Isn't this too hasty? Terumi looked worried. I have no other choice. Nanashiro sighed, and then said, there is one more thing I haven't told you. The body of the Ten Tails is in the hands of the Akatsuki organization. And the reason they took the 4th Hokage away was to collect the tail beasts and revive the Ten Tails. Once the Ten Tails is successfully resurrected, it will not be something that the 5 major ninja villages can deal with. It's just like the arrival of a myth. It's terrifying to the extreme. In any case, he didn't want to see the Ten-Tails resurrected. Is it really that exaggerated? You are not deliberately scaring me, are you? Terumi Mei did not hide her doubts. Nanashiro smiled bitterly and said, the Ten-Tails is still secondary. The most troublesome is the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. No matter how powerful the Ten-Tails is, it is just a beast without wisdom. If it is the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, it will be different. When a person possesses the bloodline of the Ten-Tails and the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts, can you imagine what kind of monster that is? Hearing this, Terumi Mei couldn't help but shudder. That's no longer scary, but terrifying. The bloodline network is immune to all ninjutsu, and with the huge chakra of the nine-tailed beasts, the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki will have nearly invincible power. Fighting the whole world with one's own strength is no longer a joke, it will become the most terrifying reality. Seeing that she understood the seriousness of the matter, Nanashiro continued, at present, the tailed beasts of the Akatsuki organization have not been collected yet, and the Ten-Tails has not been resurrected. We can take the initiative and strangle their conspiracy in the cradle. If time is delayed too long, the more prepared they are, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. Completely convinced by him, Terumi Mei wrote, okay, I will write a letter to inform the other 4 cages and take advantage of the Chunin exam to convene the 5-cage conference in Konoha village. Nanashiro smiled and said, this time when we go to Konoha, we can also take Little Apple with us, and let Tsunade take a look. Let her help treat Little Apple's illness. Although Orochimaru has betrayed Konoha, he has not completely torn his face with his fellow disciples. With him as a guarantor, it should be no problem to ask Tsunade to treat Yuyuli. As for Orochimaru, he would be happy to help after hearing the news of the crusade against Akatsuki. Mei Terumi said as she wrote the letter, since we are also going to participate in Konoha's Chunin exam, we have to pick a few good candidates and win some face for Kirigakure. In my opinion, why not take out the ninja swords and distribute them to Zio Pingo and the others? Yeah, that's a good idea. Nanashi nodded. With the ninja swords in hand, the fighting power of Yuyuri and the others will definitely increase dramatically. Among the same generation, there are only a handful of people who can beat them, which is enough for Kirigakure to show off in the Chunin exam. Then, he said, then I will go down and contact Orochimaru. Yeah. Mei Terumi did not look up and was still writing the invitation letters to the other 4 cage. To show respect, these invitation letters can only be written by her personally, and no one else can write for her. After returning home, Nanashi quickly wrote her intention on a scroll, and immediately summoned a black psychic snake. Help me bring this letter to Orochimaru as quickly as possible. Got it? Nanashiro instructed the little snake. The summoning snake couldn't speak, so it just nodded, and after quickly swallowing the scroll he gave it, it lifted the summoning technique and disappeared. After an unknown amount of time had passed, Orochimaru received a letter from Nanashiro. This guy's thinking the same thing as me. Really interesting. Looking at the words on the scroll, Orochimaru licked his lips and smiled strangely. Then, he instructed the white-haired boy not far away, Kimimaro, go down and get ready. We are going to take part in Konoha's Chunin exam. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. Kimimaro immediately turned and left. Kabuto, I asked you to contact Jiraiya and Tsunade before. How is the situation now? Orochimaru turned his head and looked at another young man wearing glasses. Kabuto pushed his glasses on the bridge of his nose and said slowly, I contacted Jiraiya under the pretext of cleaning up the mess as the adults said, and he quickly agreed. According to the time calculation, he should have returned to Konoha by now. Tsunade is a little more troublesome. However, when I said that the adults could let her see those 2 important people again, she was obviously very excited. I think she should meet you in Konoha as agreed. That's good. Orochimaru showed a satisfied smile. Uchiha Madara and the Pure Land, can't afford to play, can't afford to play. Chapter 622, The Wind Rises, Part 1. On the other hand, after receiving the message from Mei Terumi, Iwagakure and Kumogakure, who originally did not want to participate in Konoha's Chunin exam, had to reconsider. If they just went to the Chunin exam to show off their military strength, it would be meaningless, but if they convened the 5-cage conference, the meaning would be different. I still remember that the last 5-Kage conference was convened by the first generation Hokage, and it has been decades since then. Under the witness of the 5-Kages, the 5 major villages signed a ceasefire agreement, and the ninja world has been peaceful for a long time. Therefore, they are very curious about what the purpose of the Mizukage's convening of the 5-Kage conference this time is. It actually needs to convene the 5-Kage conference to solve it. After fierce discussions among the top leaders of all parties, Kirigakure and Iwagakure finally decided to respond to the call and participate in Konoha's Chunin exam. In the Sand Village, the 4th Kazekage Rasa sat in the main seat, watching the many councillors below arguing fiercely. His face was very ugly. Okay, stop arguing. In the name of the Kazekage, I cancel this plan, Rasa said to everyone seriously. They wanted to take this opportunity to go to Konoha and take revenge for the last war, and secretly contacted Iwagakure and Kirigakure to ask them not to interfere. However, the summons of the Mizukage completely disrupted his plan. They had never thought that the severely injured Kirigakure would dare to participate in Konoha's Chunin exam, and they had never thought that the Mizukage would actually convene the 5-Kage conference in the name of the Kage. Iwagakure and Kirigakure, who had originally decided not to participate, changed their minds. The 5-Kage gathered in Konoha, and if they messed up at this time, it would be tantamount to cutting themselves off from the world. They only wanted to take revenge on Konoha, but they didn't want to offend the other 3 villages. At this time, 2 old men walked into the meeting room. I have no objection to the decision of Master Kazekage, but I will go to Konoha with you, the old woman said to Alyosha seriously. Hearing this voice, everyone turned around and was very surprised when they saw the 2 old men. Because the 2 old people are the advisors of the Sand Village. Because of their old age, they usually live in seclusion in the Land of Wind and will not easily participate in the affairs of the Sand Village. I don't know what the wind is blowing today, but these 2 are here. Because of the appearance of the 2 old people, everyone has no objection to the decision of the Kazekage. Seeing the 2, Alyosha immediately stood up from his seat and greeted them, saying, Grandma Chiyo, the journey to Konoha is long. Why do you have to travel with us? The old woman is nearly 70 years old and can't compare with the young people at all. If something happens on the way, it will be a lot of fun. Lord Kazekage, this is what happened. The white-haired old man next to the old woman slowly explained. Nisang heard that Scorpion died in the Mist Village, so he wanted to take this opportunity to go to Konoha with you to meet the Mizukage and bring Scorpion's body back to the Sand Village. They are a pair of siblings, and the Red Sand Scorpion is the grandson of the elder sister. I had heard about Scorpion's death in Kirigakure before, but they had never found a chance to go to the Land of Water, so they put the matter aside. Now, hearing that the Mizukage was convening a meeting of the 5-Kage in Konoha, the elder sister finally couldn't sit still. After hearing what he said, Alyosha smiled and said to the old woman, this is not a big deal. Why don't I do it for you? No, I don't want to wait any longer. I want to pick up Scorpion myself, said Grandma Chiyo very seriously. Seeing the old woman's firm attitude, Alyosha had no choice but to bite the bullet and nod in agreement. Then, he said, in this case, I will send a message to the Mizukage and ask them to bring Scorpion's body to Konoha so that it will be convenient for exchange at that time. Well, the young man is quite sensible, not bad. Grandma Chiyo smiled and patted Alyosha on the shoulder. Being commented on in such a senior-like tone, Alyosha was extremely depressed, but he could do nothing about it. This Grandma Chiyo had a strange temper and always played cards that were not in line with common sense. Except for her, no one dared to call herself that. More importantly, regardless of qualifications or age, these 2 old men are the 2 most senior people in the entire Sand Village. Even when he was able to successfully sit on the position of Kazekage, these 2 old men also contributed a lot. Therefore, even if he was very unhappy, he still had to endure it. Then I'll go write a letter to the Mizukage. Alyosha threw down a sentence and fled away from the meeting room. It's great to be young. Looking at his back, Chiyo sighed helplessly. In the temple deep in the Miyaboki mountain, the great toad sage on the throne opened his turbid eyes. Quack, the voice of the great sage woke up the toad couple who were dozing off on both sides of the throne. Grandpa, you finally woke up. Fukasaku rubbed his sleepy eyes and said, in order to protect the safety of the great sage, they and their husbands would stay in the temple when they were free on weekdays. Little Jiraiya is here. The great toad sage said slowly. Grandfather, are you confused again? Little Jiraiya didn't come to Miyaboki Mountain today, said Shima Sage unhappily. The great sage is old and sometimes gets confused. They have been tossed around countless times because of this. The big toad sage smiled and said nothing, while Fukasaku sage tried desperately to wink at his wife, and Shima sage didn't stop muttering. At this moment, a little toad led a white-haired man carrying a huge scroll into the temple. Little Jiraiya. Fukasaku sage immediately recognized the man and glared at his wife fiercely. Shima sage turned his head aside awkwardly, speechless. This time, the great-grandfather was not confused. Greetings to the three sages. Jiraiya walked up, saluted respectfully, and sat on the ground. The immortal Fukasaku asked first, Little Jiraiya, what are you doing at Miyaboki Mountain? Jiraiya nodded and said, I want to consult the immortal great about the prophecy. Go ahead. The immortal great toad looked at him and said, some time ago, I received a letter from a friend saying that I have a disciple who is about to destroy the world and asked me to go and clean up the mess. Jiraiya said with a serious face. Upon hearing this, the Fukasaku couple were all shocked. They also knew about Jiraiya's prophecy. The immortal great said that Jiraiya's disciple would destroy the world or bring new changes to the world. However, until the last moment, no one knew who the person in the immortal great's prophecy was, so Jiraiya could only guide his disciples well and not let them go the wrong way. Unexpectedly, the person who destroyed the world was really born. Do you already know who the disciple who wants to destroy the world is? Immortal Shima asked anxiously. Well, his name is Nagato, and he has the legendary Samurai. Jiraiya replied seriously. Fukasaku suddenly realized, so he possesses the legendary Rinnegan. No wonder he dares to be so crazy. Chapter 623, The Wind Rises, Part 2. The Samurai is said to be the unique pupil technique of the Six Paths Sage, and it has disappeared from the world since the Six Paths. Many people think that it is just a legend, but for Miyaboki Mountain, which has a long history, it is not a legend, it is a real past. Fukasaku sage hurriedly turned back and asked, Grandfather, how much do you know about the Six Paths? In the entire Miyaboki Mountain, only the great toad sage has experienced the Six Paths era. He is a living fossil of Miyaboki Mountain. I think he should be able to hear some useful information from here. The Six Paths? Let me think. Then, in the expectant eyes of one person and two toads, the great toad sage slowly said, I can't remember. After holding it in for a long time, they got this sentence. The toad couple slipped and almost fell off the high platform. Jiraiya on the ground was also very helpless. The great sage was too old and his memory was declining. There was nothing he could do about it. Then grandfather, tell me what you remember quickly. Don't forget it again. Sesame Sage urged anxiously. Seeing his wife's rude tone, Fukasaku, who was sitting opposite him, frowned and reminded her, be polite to the great grandfather. Unfortunately, he only got a roll of the eyes from Shima. Oh, I do have something to say to little Jiraiya. Reminded by Shima, the great toad sage on the throne seemed to remember something and said slowly, the prophecy has changed. The child of prophecy was buried in a snowstorm. I can't see the ending clearly. Jiraiya thought for a while and said, does the great sage mean that someone will stop the child of prophecy? Based on the information I have now, it should be like this. The great sage said slowly. Jiraiya pinched his chin and thought, if the child of prophecy who destroys the world is Nagato, then, who does that snowstorm represent? The great sage smiled and said, it should be from the blue-eyed ice dragon from Kirigakure. Is it him? Jiraiya was surprised, because he learned from Orochimaru that the news that Nagato wanted to destroy and reshape the world came from that person. The great immortal continued, according to the prophecy, the one who blocks the child of prophecy will use ice escape and fairy technique, and these two powers are very rare, and they are concentrated in multiple people at the same time, so the possibility is almost zero. So I'm sure that the one from the hidden mist village is the one who caused the prophecy to change. While everyone in Miyaboki Mountain was discussing, the people of Akatsuki were also not idle. Zayanan floated in the air with paper wings and said to the people below, Konoha village has sent out invitations to all parties to participate in the grand event of the Chunin exam. The Mizukage of the Hidden Mist village is even preparing to convene the 5-cage conference in Konoha. By then, Konoha village will definitely be full of wind and clouds, and it will be very lively, and the energy of various forces will inevitably be dispersed. The best time for us to capture the tailed beast has come. After that, a piece of paper fell from her paper wing and landed very accurately in the hands of the core members of the Akatsuki organization below. This is the information we have found about the tailed beast. It records the abilities and approximate locations of each Jinkriki in the tailed beast. Zayanan added, Hey, Sister Conan. Deidara waved the information in his hand and said, the Ninetales is in Konoha village, and the 5-cage have gathered together. Even if we attack together, we won't be able to gain any advantage, right? Human power is limited. No matter how daring he is, he dare not confront Konoha head-on with the 5-cage present. Conan explained seriously, don't move the Ninetales for now. The 8-tails Jinchuriki and the Reikage are sworn brothers. They will definitely accompany the 5-cage conference this time, so we can let them go first. The 7-tails is in the Kirigakure ninja village. Kakuzu is more familiar with this place, so let Kakuzu catch it. The 6-tails is controlled by the Hidden Mist village. It is said that someone has sealed it under the village with a fairy technique. It is not easy to get it. Pin will do it himself. Hearing this, Obito's eyes flashed with a strange color. The 5-tails and the 4-tails have all defected from the Hidden Rock village and left the village's protection. Itachi's team will go and capture them. We have already captured the 3-tails. The 2-tails is in the Land of Lightning. Deidara will take you there. As he spoke, Conan glanced at the excited boy on the ground. I heard that the last 1-tails will be taken by the Kazakage to participate in Konoha's Chunin exams. But unlike the 8-tails, the 1-tails Jinkriki is still a child who cannot control the power of the tailed beasts. You, Obito, will go. Do you have any objections? Conan cast a questioning look at the scarred man in the corner. No. Obito replied expressionlessly. Well, then, everyone go and prepare separately. After giving instructions, Conan flapped his paper wings and flew into a tall tower. Is everything arranged? Tendai asked from the window. Well, everything is arranged. Zayanan landed, nodded, and asked again. Konoha invited our own village to participate in the Chunin exam. Do we need to send someone? Let's send someone. Cover us by the way. The later we are exposed, the better. Shiandeo said seriously, looking at the heavy rain outside. The rain village is different from the other 4 major ninja villages. It has no right to refuse. If it attracts the attention of Konoha at this time, it is likely to lead to the exposure of the Akatsuki organization's nest. Moreover, this time's 5-cage conference always gives me an ominous premonition. I'm afraid something is going to happen. Shiandeo's tone has a hint of worry. At this point, he turned his head and said to the corner of the wall, White Zetsu, send your clone to Konoha to keep an eye on it. I want to know what the 5-cage are going to do this time. Hearing this, half of a white weirdo poked out from the corner of the wall and replied with a grin, no problem, leave it to me. After that, he disappeared into the wall again. On the other side, just as Obito returned to his residence, he heard Nohara and asked in surprise, Obito, I heard that Konoha is going to start a large-scale Chunin exam again. Shall we go back to Konoha? Obito did not completely restrict her freedom. She could walk around in this strange city and relax. As a result, she heard many ninjas talking about Konoha starting the Chunin exam. Rin. Seeing the eager eyes of his beloved, it was difficult for Obito to say no. After thinking for a long time, he could only whisper to comfort, Rin, give me a little more time, just give me a little more time. He did not dare to continue. Because in this nest of the Akatsuki organization, White Zetsu was hiding in every corner. Especially last time, after he and Nagato had an argument, the other party must be on guard against him. In order to prevent White Zetsu from hearing anything, he could only control his mouth. Oh. The girl turned away in disappointment and did not look at him again. Obito wanted to say something but stopped, but he had no choice. He could only comfort himself silently in his heart. Wait a little longer. Just wait a little longer. His chance to revive Lin is coming. By then, he can take Lin wherever he wants. Accepting everyone's opinions, I changed the title to Blue-Eyed Ice Dragon. The word dragon is indeed too heavy, and it is a bit unbearable. Chapter 624 Test. The moon was bright in the sky. It was midnight. The streets of Kirigakure were silent, with only the occasional street lamp silently illuminating the road. Nanashiro came to the fountain square again with the big sword Sumehada on his back. Hearing the noise, Hashiga Kikisame in the pool opened his eyes. You are finally here. I thought you had forgotten me and wanted to lock me here forever. Kisame said to him with a smile. Nanashiro did not answer because several Kirigakure ninjas who were responsible for guarding came up around. My lord. The leader bowed his head and saluted him. Don't be nervous. Nanashiro waved his hand and said softly, I will take Hashiga Kikisame away. As for the other things under the pool, they will not be moved for the time being. You will still watch them secretly. Everyone, retreat. Yes. Several Kirigakure ninjas disappeared into the shadows of the street corner again. Nanashi walked into the pool, forming a seal, while releasing his chakra into the pool water, connecting it with the chakra and the ice chain on Kisame's body, thus bringing the ice chain back under his control. Soon, a strange sense of control jumped into his heart, and he shouted softly, untie. Then, he saw the ice chain on Hashiga Kikisame's body shattered inch by inch, and then dissipated in the pool. Follow me. Without waiting for Kisame to speak, Nanashi grabbed his arm, after untying the ice chain, and suddenly flew into the air, and disappeared into the night sky. Where are you taking me? Kisame shouted loudly in the sky. Because the other party flew very fast, as soon as he opened his mouth, the cold mist of midnight filled his throat, chilling him from head to soles of feet. I have a task for you, Nanashi said without turning his head. On the river in front of him, a huge dam gradually became clear in his vision. Then, he landed on the riverbank 200 meters away from the dam with Hashiga Kikisame. You can ask me to do something, but you have to give me the Sumehada first. Kisame's eyes fell on the broadsword on the young man's back. Nanashi didn't say much, and directly took off the Sumehada on his back, and handed it over. As if he was happy to meet his old master again, Sumehada seemed very excited, and the barbs on his body were trembling. Whoosh! As soon as the handle of the Sumehada sword slipped out of Nanashi's palm, the barbed blade turned around, and chopped directly at his head. Seeing that the barbs on the blade were only an inch away from his head, the huge blade suddenly stopped chopping. Only the strong wind blown by the blade made Nanashi's hair fly in all directions. Aren't you afraid of being killed by my sword? Kisame put away the broadsword and asked with a little surprise. If it was an ordinary ninja who faced this sudden attack, he might not have time to react, but he did not believe that this ninja would be like this. But the other party just stood there motionless, with no intention of dodging or blocking, just like waiting to die. Qishuang looked at him seriously and said, while you are testing me, I'm also testing you. If your attack is successful, it means that you were lying to me before, and I will kill you tonight. But if your attack is not successful, it means that you are just testing me, and there is no need for me to be serious with you. Kisame grinned and said, what if I don't stop my attack in time and kill you? First of all, you have to have the ability to kill me. Qishuang said coldly, and a strong chakra aura suddenly burst out from his body. In just a moment, Kisame saw that his body was wrapped in a layer of white light. Is this what they call ice release chakra mode? Kisame asked in surprise. During the last civil strife, he was not able to fight him. He had only heard about this ice release chakra mode from Obito and the others, but had never seen it in person. Nanashi nodded. Seeing Kisame eager to try, he hooked his finger at him and said nonchalantly, I'll give you one chance. Use all your strength to chop me. Okay. After getting the promise, Kisame nodded repeatedly, happy like a child. Then, he took Sumehada from his back and slowly stepped back 2 steps. Am I going to attack? He held the knife with both hands and reminded seriously. Just come on. Nanashi said casually. If he didn't show him a little color, it would not be so easy to command this unruly shark. Seeing this, Hashiga Kikisame took a deep breath, took a step and jumped up, and the huge blade of Sumehada was raised high above his head. Cut. Man and knife became one, aiming at Nanashi's shoulder and slashing in the air. Boom. The riverbank with a radius of several meters suddenly collapsed, and Qishuang was driven into the ground like a wooden stake, with only a small part of her body left on the ground. Something's happening. At the same time, the mist ninja on duty on the dam also noticed the abnormality on the riverbank. Then, 2 mist ninjas came over and shouted loudly, "Who is it?" Qishuang hurriedly crawled out of the ground, took out a mask from her pocket, and handed it to Qisame, whispering, "Put it on. Don't let them see your face." Without asking, Qisame immediately put the mask on his face. "Sir Qishuang, why is it you?" The 2 mist ninjas were surprised to find the source of the abnormal movement. One of them, the cold air formed by the ice attribute chakra all over his body. Others couldn't imitate it, even if they wanted to. There is no mistake, it is that adult. However, they were also very confused. Why did this adult stay up late at night and come to the riverbank to toss? As for the other one who was wearing a mask, they could not identify him. They only recognized the big sword in his hand, which was the Samehada of the Hidden Mist Village. "Don't be nervous, I just came out to patrol with my friends. On a whim, I tried 2 moves here." Qishuang collected the chakra on her body and patiently explained to the 2. "So that's how it is." The 2 suddenly realized. "You all go back, I'll come to the dam later." After explaining, Qishuang sent the 2 away again. Yes. The 2 retreated immediately. Seeing them walk away, Hashigaki Qisame took off the mask on his head and hurriedly surrounded Nanashimo, saying in amazement, "Your ice release chakra mode is really powerful. You took my sword hard, but there is no trace of injury. No wonder you are not worried that I can't put away the sword in time. However, Samehada has a great restraining effect on chakra techniques, and your trick is useless to me. If you and I fight to the death, I'm afraid I still have a better chance of winning." After putting away Samehada, Qisame looked at Nanashimo proudly. "No, the result will only be you die and I live." Nanashimo looked at him seriously and said, "Why?" Qisame put away the smugness on his face. "The other party must be sure of winning if you said this. But this is also what he wants to know most, why he died." Looking at Samehada on the back of the shark face, Nanashimo slowly said, "In terms of physical skills, I'm indeed not your opponent. In close combat, I will definitely be sucked out of your chakra with one sword after another and die of exhaustion." Chapter 625 Instructions. "But I can fly." Qishuang looked at Shark Face and said playfully, "As long as I can fly up to the sky and have a chance to catch my breath, you won't have a chance to win. You don't think you can kill me in an instant without any chance of flying, do you?" Hearing this, Hashigaki Qisame fell silent. Judging from this person's current record, he can be sure that the opponent will never be weaker than himself, and it is impossible for him to resolve the battle in a very short time and cut off the opponent's chance of flying. By then, the offensive and defensive situation will be reversed, and his chance of winning will be reduced to the extreme. "Okay, I brought you out tonight not for a competition, but for a very important task for you," he said to Qisame, and then Qishuang walked along the riverbank to the dam at the other end. "What do you want me to do?" Qisame hurriedly followed and asked curiously. "I want you to protect this dam." Qishuang turned around and looked at Shark Face playfully. "Are you kidding? It's just a wreck. Even if it was destroyed, it wouldn't take long to rebuild it, right? Why would it need to be protected?" Looking at the dam at the other end of the canal, Qisame shook his head. "Of course, I'm not just asking you to protect the dam, but to protect the things inside the dam," Qishuang said as he walked. "The things inside the dam? What's inside?" Qisame was a little curious. "I use the Vulpix as the energy source for the water purification barrier," Qishuang replied in a low voice. "Vulpix?" Hashigaki Qisame, who was following behind, was stunned for a moment, and then laughed. "You are really an interesting person. Other forces are eager to hide the tailed beasts and use them as secret weapons at critical moments, but you are so good that you actually use it as a battery," Nanashiro said indifferently. "No matter how powerful the weapons are, they can't let everyone have enough food or make more money. They are idle anyway, so we might as well take them out and use them as waste." "That makes sense." Qisame nodded and then said, "In my opinion, the so-called tailed beasts are actually just that. Without it, the Hidden Mist Village can still live well." Nanashiro walked in front and continued. You also know that the Akatsuki organization, where Achihirobito is located, has been keeping an eye on the tailed beasts. In a few days, the Mizukage and I will take people to Konoha to participate in the Chunin exam and the 5-cage conference. I'm not at ease with no one watching here. Qishuang immediately responded, don't worry, leave the Vulpix to me. Seeing the dam getting closer and closer, Qishuang instructed again, you are still a criminal, and it is not suitable for you to show your face. For the time being, use the mask of the Anbu to cover it up. When the time is right, I will propose to the Mizukage to clear the charges against you. You are stationed here and just take care of the Vulpix. As for other matters on the dam, you don't have to worry about anything. Understood? Qishuang nodded. Obeying orders is a habit he has developed over many years of Anbu career. He will strictly follow all orders. Only you, me and Lord Mizukage know that Vulpix is hiding here. Qishuang walked along the riverbank and continued, even if I use fairy techniques to cover it up, it is impossible to avoid detection by others 100%. There is still a risk of leaking information. I'm very confident in your abilities. With Samehada, there are not many people in the ninja world who can defeat you. Now is a peaceful time, and the 5-cage tournament is imminent. The other 4 villages should not have any intention of targeting Vulpix. The only real threat to us is the Akatsuki organization. Hearing this, Qishuang continued, I don't know much about the Akatsuki organization. I have only had brief contact with Achihirobito, Kakuzu, Sasori, White Zetsu, and Black Zetsu. I don't know who else is in their organization. Qishuang thought for a moment and said slowly, with your abilities, the only ones in the Akatsuki organization who can definitely defeat you are Achihiro and the 6 Paths of Pain. You can fight as hard as you can against others. Moreover, the mouth of this canal connects to the sea. There is plenty of water and the terrain is very favorable for you. Even if you can't win, you can remain undefeated. Terrain is very important for ninjas. If it is a desert terrain, the combat power of water style ninjas like Qishuang will drop significantly. And this estuary is connected to the sea, with endless water. For Qishuang, there is no better battlefield than this. Is the Achihiro Itachi you are talking about the Itachi who wiped out the clan in Konoha? As for the 6 Paths of Pain, how come I have never heard of it? Qishuang asked curiously. Nanashi sighed and said, Achihiro Itachi is the Itachi who wiped out the clan in Konoha. He is best at using illusions. In a one-on-one battle, it will be very difficult for anyone to meet him. Your chances of winning against him are almost zero. Is he really that powerful? Qishuang asked suspiciously. Qishuang stopped, turned around, looked at him with an eager look, and said solemnly, his Sharingan illusion is superb. It can be said that there is no one in the entire ninja world who can match it. And you know the characteristics of illusions. Once you are hit, you won't even have a chance to fight back. I don't want you to die in his hands. Don't fight him alone. Seeing that he looked serious and didn't seem to be joking, Qishuang put away his curiosity and said unwillingly, what should I do if he comes to snatch the Vulpix? Don't worry about this, just save your life. Qishuang turned around and continued to move forward and said, he is very powerful, but he can't break my magic. The Vulpix was sealed in the dam by my magic. Even if he finds it, he can't take it away. Itachi's Amaterasu has the characteristic of never extinguishing, so it can burn continuously and burn everything by burning for a long time, and it is said to be indestructible. But the basic destructive power of Amaterasu's fire is limited. When encountering a target that is particularly difficult to burn, it can only rely on time to burn it little by little. For example, Nana Frost's celestial art ice. Theoretically, Amaterasu's fire has the possibility of melting celestial art ice, but the melting speed is not satisfactory. You know, water overcomes fire, and ice, as another form of water, also has the characteristics of restraining fire. Although Amaterasu's fire is not an ordinary fire escape, it is a flame escape, which is a kind of blood limit, but ice escape is also of the same level. In addition, Nana Frost has mastered ice escape, and Itachi's Amaterasu's fire can't take advantage of his ice escape, not to mention the blessing of celestial art. If the opponent has that time to melt the celestial art ice, I'm afraid it will be enough for him to go back and forth from Konoha several times. Therefore, He is not worried at all that Uchiha Itachi will come to snatch the six-tailed fox. Then, what about the six paths of pain? Qishuang asked again. He is another leader of the Akatsuki organization and the owner of the legendary Samsara. Qishuang paused and continued, if you face him, you won't be like Uchiha Itachi, who had no chance to attack because of the illusion. However, his strength is very strong, and you also have no chance of winning. If you meet him, you should focus on saving your life, and give him the Vulpix. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.